Yet they accused me of having no conscience, of making dirty money, and said they'd rather let the crops rot in the field than sell to me. The following year, I stopped selling for them. Instead, I turned to help several nearby villages sell their kiwi fruit. To my surprise, I ended up making an absolute fortune. 1. Red heart kiwi fruit. The prime harvesting season each year is around August 25th to September 5th. In our village, over 80 households primarily grow kiwi fruit for a living. With smaller farms covering 5 to 6 mu and larger ones spanning 20 to 30 mu, the village's total annual yield is around 2 million jin. To find a market for all the village's kiwi fruit, as soon as August began, I started running around everywhere, contacting buyers. There are buyers in the county too, but their prices are about 30% lower than the primary market, and they're picky about the fruit. They won't accept any fruit weighing less than 80 grams, if we let them handle the purchasing. Every household would be left with about 40% of their fruit unsold, and this remaining 40% can only be sold to the collection station for just a few cents per jin, so that the villagers can earn a bit more. I'm out from dawn till dusk, either on my way to meet with buyers or drinking with them. From noon until night, it's 3 sessions a day, sometimes even 4, with hardly a break, even with a decent tolerance. I couldn't keep up with that kind of drinking pace. In the end, I proudly drank myself straight into the hospital. Fortunately, I managed to sign this year's acquisition contract just before I was admitted to the hospital. I was lying in the hospital on an 4 drip. Suddenly, I got a call from my dad. Alex, something's happened at home, you need to come back right now. My dad sounded frantic, and the call was cut off before he even finished speaking. It seemed as if someone had forcibly hung up on him. I know for a fact that my father is not a hot-headed or impatient man. For him to be in such a rush, something serious must have happened at home. I didn't even call the nurse. I just yanked out the 4 and rushed home. More than half the journey from the city to our village is mountain roads, and it takes at least 3 hours even at the fastest. By the time I finally made it home, it was already past 1 in the afternoon. A crowd had gathered outside my house. Usually, they're warm and welcoming when they see me, but today they were unusually cold and distant. Not a single person offered a greeting. What's everyone doing squatting by the door? Why not go inside? This year's kiwi fruit purchase contracts and prices have been set. Come on in, everyone, and hear the details. I greeted them proactively, but no one paid me any mind. Even the looks they gave me turned strange. Sensing the awkward atmosphere, I decided not to press my luck. Once I stepped inside, I realized the courtyard was already packed. It wasn't that the people outside didn't want to come in, they simply couldn't squeeze their way through. My father was squatting by the main hall's entrance, his head hung low. My mother's eyes were red and swollen as she kept wiping away tears. That black-hearted wretch is back. Alex, you heartless bastard. Cough up everyone's hard-earned money. Now, too. The moment I stepped into the courtyard, I was surrounded by a crowd. Gone was the usual politeness in their words, replaced only by accusations and abuse, withholding hard-earned wages. That statement left me completely baffled. When have I ever withheld their hard-earned money? If you can speak, then speak like a decent person. Stop spewing nonsense everywhere. When have I ever withheld your hard-earned wages? I retorted, frowning. Don't play dumb, you know exactly what you did. You buy our fruit for 5 yuan a jin. Sell it for 79 yuan a box. Over 5 jin per box, pocketing 10 yuan profit on every jin from us. Have you no shame? We're neighbors, from the same village. I never thought you could be so heartless, even skimming our hard-earned money. Hearing their accusations, it suddenly dawned on me. Someone was deliberately sowing discord behind the scenes. My mind immediately went to my 2 little sidekicks, in the whole village. Aside from those 2, there wasn't a third soul who knew about this. Did Cecilia say that, or was it Derek? I demanded coldly. Both of them are university graduates from our village. Over the years, our village's kiwi fruit business has really taken off. After graduation, they couldn't find any decent jobs, so they came back to help their families grow kiwi fruit. When the village chief found out, he had them join me in expanding our sales channels, aiming to take our village's kiwi fruit venture to the next level. I can't say if it's a step up or not. But one thing's for sure, Derek is the village chief's own son. This year, I've been taking the 2 of them with me to the wholesale market. The wholesale market is too big for me to cover alone. I assigned each of them a section and had them ask the merchants if they needed any kiwi fruit and to get their contact information if they did. By noon, I had already covered 3 districts myself, while the 2 of them hadn't even finished one. Their excuse was that they had no experience and didn't know how to handle the communication. In the evening, I took them to dinner with a buyer. The 2 of them just sat there eating like a couple of idiots, completely oblivious to everything else. They couldn't even manage the most basic courtesy of a toast. When the buyer initiated a toast with them, they didn't drink alcohol, fine, but they didn't even raise their juice glasses in response. It made the whole situation incredibly awkward. After the dinner, emboldened by the drinks, I gave them a piece of my mind and then hailed a cab to send them home first. Little did I know, they'd come back and stab me in the back. Never mind them, just answer the question. Did you or did you not withhold everyone's hard-earned money? The village chief said, waving his hand impatiently. Absolutely not. They both need to be here today. I said firmly, if anyone has something to say, let's hash it out face to face, right here and now. After spending years in university, you can't just go around stirring up trouble like a shit-stirring stick. 3. Alex, who exactly are you calling a troublemaker? How dare you deny skimming off the hard-earned money of our fellow villagers? Cecilia and Derek stepped out from behind the crowd. Derek glared at me with fury, while Cecilia looked down her nose with an air of superiority. Everyone trusted you and handed over the kiwi fruit to you. Who would have thought you could be so heartless? Our village produces roughly 2 million jin of fruit a year. Skimming 10 yuan off every jin means you're swindling 20 million yuan from everyone annually. That's 60 million over 3 years. Every family in our village depends on the kiwi fruit harvest to make a living. And what do? You contribute nothing, yet you pocket over 20 million from us every single year. Are you even human? Cecilia and Derek, playing off each other perfectly, successfully stirred up everyone's anger against me. After hearing their words, the villagers' gazes toward me grew increasingly hostile. I'm out from dawn till dusk, dealing with those buyers. Are the 2 of you blind or something? I retorted in a low voice. A pair of ungrateful wretches, after all the care I've shown them. Not only did they stab me in the back today, but they also twisted the truth. Humph. Cecilia curled her lip and let out a cold, mocking laugh. Well, since you put it that way, let's tell everyone exactly how you conduct your business meetings. At the city's most expensive hotel, the Triumph Grand, a single meal costs 20 or 30,000. That's where Alex dines every day. A bottle of mutai goes for 2,500, and he polishes off 4 or 5 of them in one sitting. Going to a nightclub to find a prostitute at night, those women are so filthy, he probably doesn't even realize he's already caught something. Not only is he squandering everyone's hard-earned money, but he's also shortchanging us on the kiwi prices, and he calls that putting in the effort. Cecilia pointed at me, seething with righteous indignation. The moment she finished speaking, someone immediately chimed in agreement. Scum, he's feeding off everyone else. Getting fat on our blood and sweat. Pay up, he has to pay back the money today. They were all talking over each other, and the more they said, the uglier it got. They outright painted me as a freeloading parasite. Have you finished? I raised my voice, cutting through the chatter. If not, keep going. It's not like it's getting dark anytime soon. I'll wait until you've all had your say, then I'll speak. The crowd gradually quieted down. I didn't start speaking until there wasn't a single sound to be heard. I can't be bothered to argue about Cecilia's slander that I went to a nightclub to hire a prostitute. Everyone's already made up their minds. Even if I talked until I was blue in the face, they wouldn't believe me. Let me ask you one thing. 5 yuan per jean. Isn't that the highest buying price around here? Have I ever shortchanged you? Not only do I give you the best price, but I also don't pick and choose based on size. As long as the fruit isn't spoiled, I take it all. What other village around here gets that kind of treatment? Before I started buying kiwi fruit, every year when the harvest season rolled around, all the other growers would be so worried they couldn't sleep. Except for my family, the village chief and a few others ran all over the place, whining and dining this person and that, finally managing to find a buyer. But as soon as they finished collecting the fruit, they just up and vanished. The villagers didn't get a single cent. The following year, the village chief and the others came to my family, begging us to help them figure something out. Back then, I knew some people in the city who would buy all the fruit from my family, but their operation was too small. They couldn't possibly handle the entire village's kiwi harvest. I really didn't want to get involved. But the village chief and over 10 others knelt right in front of me, refusing to get up unless I agreed. Left with no choice, I could only promise to give it a try. I spent money on gifts and pulled strings, running around for over half a month before I finally found a buyer, a Mr. Wang, from a neighboring city. That year, everyone in the village who grew kiwi fruit made good money. From then on, the whole village went all in on growing kiwi fruit. Every year when harvest season comes around, the buyers show up at our doorstep without us even having to ask. All the villagers have to do is count their money. Every household has upgraded from their old mud brick houses to modern multi-story homes. Life keeps getting better and better, but they have forgotten all of this. I got it for them. Cut the crap. You sell a box for 79, but you pay us $5 a pound. You call that treating us fairly? If a box of fruit sells for 79, you should be paying us 79. Otherwise, how can you live with yourself? 5. I was so exasperated I almost laughed. The Qing dynasty is long gone, but these people are still clinging to their cues. Even the Empress Dowager Cixi wasn't this stubborn in her day. Do you think I don't have any costs? I sell a box of fruit for 79. What about labor, the gift boxes, shipping costs? Do you think every single piece of fruit can be sold for 79? I looked around. Not a single person dares to contradict me. 79 per box. And only the extra-large fruits weighing over 130 grams can be sold for 79. You're all experienced growers. Based on a yield of 3,000 jin per mu, what percentage of that would be the extra-large fruits over 130 grams? Tell me. I paused once more, my gaze sweeping over the assembled group. Everyone kept their heads bowed, not daring to meet my eyes. Why have you all gone quiet? They all understood perfectly well. For the extra-large fruit over 130 grams, it only makes up about 30% of the yield per mu, less than 30%. Did any of you ever stop to think about what to do with the other 70%? The first year I helped you all sell the fruit, I lost 170,000 yuan. My family struggled through a whole year of hardship because of it. Did any of you give me a single cent? 5. In my first year helping the village sell fruit, I was completely clueless and ended up losing 170,000 yuan all told, but all the villagers made money. The very next year, the entire village jumped on the bandwagon and started planting kiwi fruit. Back then, the village chief and the others came to me again. They put me in charge of the whole thing right away, praising me for being highly capable. I privately mentioned the shortfall to the village chief. The village chief promised me then that once this year's fruit was sold, he'd have everyone help make up the deficit for me. I had already gotten on board with Mr. Wang by then, so I figured the procurement wouldn't be too difficult. I agreed. Little did I know, when I went back to see Mr. Wang with gifts in hand, he was no longer in that line of work. Fortunately, he referred me to some other buyers. I went to negotiate with each of them, but the prices weren't very appealing. I finally managed to get in touch with manager's son from a chain supermarket. The price he quoted was very satisfactory, but right at the end of our discussion, he suddenly changed his tune. I was completely baffled and couldn't figure it out, so I had no choice but to call President Wang for advice. President Wang understood the situation immediately. The other party was asking for a kickback. To put it bluntly, manager's son is just an employee. He can source fruit from anyone. If there's no personal benefit in it for him, why would he choose yours? There are plenty of good options out there. You're not indispensable. With Mr. Wang's mediation, I signed a contract with manager's son. He agreed to buy all the kiwi fruit from our village, but I had to give him a 300,000 yuan kickback. I couldn't tell a soul about the kickback. That's not just the rule, it's human nature. At the time, the market purchase price was a little over 3 yuan per jin. Under these circumstances, I could only offer the villagers 5 yuan per jin, regardless of size, and I would cover the shipping costs. The village's yield was very low that year, as many were growing kiwi fruit for the first time. The trees and soil weren't well established yet, resulting in an average yield of only about 1,000 jin per mu. The entire village's total harvest only amounted to 600,000 jin of fruit. We deduct 3% for moisture loss, which also covers spoiled fruit and shipping damage. That's just standard practice in the procurement business. after deducting the 3% for miscellaneous costs and shipping. I ended up with roughly 460,000. I transferred 300,000 to director's son, leaving me with 160,000. To thank Director Wong for brokering the deal, I gave him a 50,000 facilitation fee. When someone hooks you up with resources, they don't do it for free. If you don't pay the facilitation fee, you're just shooting yourself in the foot. On top of that, after footing the bill for all those meals and other expenses, I barely ended up with any money left. The village chief never mentioned a word about what he promised me afterwards. 6. Don't think we're clueless. Even with less than 30%, you're still turning a profit. Cecilia saw that everyone was thoroughly shamed by my words. She once again took the lead in fanning the flames. With just a few words, he got everyone's spirits up again. Alex, I don't mean to lecture you, but you really should help folks out. We've all watched you grow up. How can you be so heartless? If everyone acted like you, Lu family village would be finished. Robert, look at the fine son you raised, making money from such shameful, heartless schemes. We toil on these few acres of land day in and day out, without a single day's rest all year, just waiting to sell the fruit to make a living. And what does your son do? Under the pretense of helping us sell the kiwi fruit, he shortchanges us by 10 yuan per gene. They couldn't talk me into it. A few of those old-timers actually turned their accusations toward my parents. My parents are decent, honest folks. Cornered by their words, I could only lower my head further. Watching my parents get bullied, I saw red. If you have a problem, you deal with me. This has nothing to do with my parents. Since you all think I'm making dirty money, I won't be buying the village's fruit harvest this year. From now on, I'm done. You can take your business to whoever you want. I delivered the ultimatum. The villagers were all stunned. After all, I offered the best purchase price and the most favorable terms. They know the situation in the nearby villages better than I do. If I don't buy it, where else could they get such a good price? I'll take it. Just when everyone was at a loss, Cecilia stepped forward. With a simple, I'll take it, she put everyone's mind at ease. Derek and I will take charge of selling our village's kiwi fruit this year. We promise not to take a single cent of profit for ourselves. Rest assured, everyone. Cecilia and I have been in touch with quite a few buyers recently. Our village's fruit is top quality, the yield is high, and it's well regarded in the market. We won't have any trouble selling it. You have my word. We would never swindle you out of your hard-earned money like some people would. They had found their pillar of strength. The villagers began to shower the two with praise. They trotted out the same flattering words they had once used on me, now directed at the two of them. They only changed the name. Everything else is a carbon copy, down to the last punctuation mark. Since someone's willing to pick up this mess, I'm more than happy to wash my hands of it. These villagers have become insatiable. Their appetites could swallow an elephant. For the past 2 harvest seasons, I've repeatedly stressed to them not to include any rotten or insect-damaged fruit. But they just wouldn't listen. Every single time I submitted the batch, the inspectors always pointed out the presence of spoiled and defective fruit. If I didn't have solid connections, they would have absolutely made me haul it all back. Sure, they have solid connections, but they went from deducting 3% for moisture straight to 5%. That extra 2 percentage points cost me over 200,000. I watched as Cecilia and Derek departed, the center of everyone's attention. A wave of immense relief suddenly washed over me. 7. Even though I'm no longer buying kiwi fruit from this village, the contract I signed with the other party is still valid. For 2 million gene of kiwi fruit, I must deliver on time by September 10th. For every day of delay, 5% will be deducted from the final settlement. The next day, I drove over to the neighboring village to look around. What are you doing? Trying to steal fruit in broad daylight, is that it? I was standing in front of the plantation in Shijia village. I had just opened up a fruit to look at when someone called out to me. A woman with fair, clear skin and delicate, refined features walked over. She wore a straw hat, her skin was as fair as snow, and her eyes were as clear as water. She gave off a very spirited and self-assured impression. No, I'm just here to look. Don't you remember me, Mr. Alex? The woman took off her straw hat and cut me off with a beaming smile. You are. I racked my brain, trying to recall, but it seemed I genuinely didn't know her. No worries if you can't remember. let's start over. I'm Chloe, the first secretary of Shija village. The woman in the straw hat extended her hand toward me, full of warmth. Nice to meet you, Secretary Chloe, I said, politely shaking her hand in return. She's a university graduate serving as a village official, a role found in several nearby villages. Last year, our village had a surplus of kiwi fruit that we couldn't sell. I went to see Mr. Alex, hoping he could help, but I didn't even get to meet him. After saying this, Chloe looked at me with a deeply regretful expression. My heart sank when I heard that. When did this happen? I had no idea. Sorry, I really didn't know this was, I said, scratching my head awkwardly. It's fine. What's this, Mr. Alex? I'm here to check out how the kiwi fruit is doing in the villages around us. Just getting a full picture. You can rest assured about our village's kiwi fruit. It's every bit as good as yours, if not better. Don't forget, our whole village is on a sunny slope, so it gets plenty of light. Chloe picked out a riper kiwi fruit and handed it to me. I peeled it and took a bite. The texture is nice. It would probably be even better if it were a bit riper. So, interested in our village's kiwi fruit? Chloe asked, a sly smile playing on her lips as she saw me enjoying it. I heard about your falling out with your village. I frowned. Word travels fast, doesn't it? But then again, the two villages are only a few miles apart, and with all the family ties between them, it's no surprise the news reached them. What's your village's total yield? Around 1 million gene. A few years back, our village's output was even larger than yours. But the purchase price was never very good, and on top of that, the transportation was inconvenient, so in the last couple of years, a lot of people have stopped farming. The yield has been cut by more than half. Chloe looked regretful. I nodded along, sharing her sentiment. Meanwhile, I was thinking to myself, their village only has 1 million gene. That's still a long way off from fulfilling my contract. But don't worry, the roads in our village are all fixed up now. Big trucks can get through. If they can't make it in, we can carry the goods out to the main road. I didn't rush to give my response. Chloe thought I didn't want to accept the fruit from their village, so she quickly added, Secretary Chloe, that's not what I meant. Your village's 1 million is still a long way off from my target. Don't worry about that. I'm the first secretary of Shija village. I know the folks in all the surrounding villages. If you need, I can go ask around for you right now. Once word gets out that it's Mr. Alex, all the nearby villages will be lining up for you to take their produce. We can get you as much as you need. Chloe's flattery really warmed my heart. I'll take the fruit from their village. Tell me what your village needs. Our village doesn't have many demands, Chloe said with a smile, dimples forming at the corners of her mouth. We just need to sell the fruit. Had I not caught that sly glint in her eyes, I would have believed her to be completely innocent. But now, I'm absolutely certain she has an ulterior motive. I hear Mr. Alex buys fruit, no matter the size, and offers a fair price. Chloe's smile grew even brighter. Just as I thought, a sly old fox, sharp as a tack, 5 yuan per gene, and I'm not picky about the size. If you can accept these terms, I'll take it. If not, I won't. I'm not running a charity here. How much I make is my business. I don't want to explain it, and I won't. Chloe's smile slowly faded. I understand. In business, it's all about relationships and navigating social complexities. On paper, you might make 10 yuan per gene, but what actually ends up in your pocket is always less. One more thing, the fruit must be sent to the city for testing in advance. I can only accept it if the quality passes and the pesticide residue is within the acceptable limits. If it's convenient for you, come with me to the city tomorrow and bring the fruit. If we drop it off in the morning, we should get the results back around 3 p.m. 8. The next morning, I took Chloe to the city. After 4 hours, we delivered the fruit to the testing department of Fresh Group. Alex, where are you? On the other end of the line, Mr. Lee from Fresh Group yelled at me angrily. Mr. Lee, I'm right here in our testing department. What's going on? Get to my office. Now. Before I could even respond, Mr. Sun hung up the phone. Mr. Lee is the golden goose who signed the contract with me. If anything happens to him, I'm finished. I'll have Chloe keep an eye on things here. I'm going to see Mr. Lee alone. After what happened last time, I'm not bringing anyone to meet my boss again. Better safe than sorry. The moment I walked into the office, I saw Cecilia and Derek were there too. Alex, your people have no sense of propriety at all. Mr. Lee said, his face livid. Mr. Lee, please don't misunderstand. They're not with me. If they're not with you, why are they using your name, Mr. Lee snorted coldly. Cecilia shot a panicked glance in my direction. Before I could even ask them, she quickly changed the subject. She doesn't have the nerve to confront me, Mr. Lee. We're here to do business. There's no need to be so tense. We'll definitely offer a better price for the kiwi fruit than Alex. There's something you probably aren't aware of yet. From now on, the kiwi fruit procurement for VillageThe has nothing to do with Alex. We are the ones in full charge, so can you have the non-essential personnel leave now? Cecilia's tone was forceful, carrying an air of haughty superiority. I really don't understand where she gets the nerve. Alex, what's going on? Manager Lee was taken aback. Boss Lee, she's right. The kiwi fruit from VillageThe has nothing to do with me from now on. I stated bluntly. I don't care if it has anything to do with you or not. We have a contract, signed in black and white, for 2 million gene of red-fleshed kiwi fruit. If you can't deliver, you'll have to pay me double the penalty, Boss Lee said, pulling the contract from a cabinet and slamming it down in front of me. I bent down, picked up the contract from the floor, and with a broad smile, placed it back on the desk in front of Boss Lee. As long as he still honors this contract, that's all that matters. With this contract in hand, nothing Cecilia says today will make a difference. No matter how hard she tries, Mr. Lee, you can rest assured. I guarantee not a single ounce will be missing, I assured Mr. Lee, thumping my chest for emphasis. Seeing this, Cecilia immediately cut me off. Mr. Lee, don't let him fool you. We are the ones in charge of the kiwi fruit from VillageThe now. Alex has nothing to do with it. Where on earth would he get 2 million gene of kiwi fruit for you? Even if he could get it for you, he'd definitely just be sourcing some off-brand fruit to pass off on you. Cecilia looked at me with a sneer. Mr. Lee remained silent. As we all could see, she exchanged a meaningful glance with Derek. Mr. Alex, to show our sincerity, our village's kiwi fruit is priced at 4.5 yuan per gene. Seeing that she couldn't persuade Mr. Lee, Cecilia suddenly started lowering her price. Mr. Lee paused for a moment upon hearing this. He stared at Cecilia with keen interest. It was that very look that gave Cecilia a glimmer of hope. For the same fruit, Alex charges you 5 yuan per gene, but we only ask for 4.5, Mr. Lee. You must see our sincerity now. We're saving you 0.5 yuan per gene, for 2 million gene. That's a total saving of 1 million yuan. It's no surprise that Cecilia and the other one are university students. An educated person really is different. Their multiplication skills are seriously impressive, just as the two of them were diligently working on the accounts for Manager Lee. A group of security guards burst through the door. 4.50 a pound for this fruit. What are you growing? The Queen Mother of the West's peaches of immortality. Alex's fruit is 1 yuan per gene. Get these two idiots out of here. If they ever sneak back in, you're fired as head of security, Mr. Lee yelled furiously, upon hearing Mr. Lee's order. The security guards swarmed in and dragged Cecilia and Derek out. As she was being dragged away, Cecilia kept struggling and protesting. 1 yuan per gene, impossible. He buys it from the villagers for 5 yuan per gene. Cecilia would never have dreamed of knowing. The fruit I sell to Mr. Lee is all the leftovers from my own selection. The premium jumbo fruit goes to the high-end market, the large fruit to supermarkets, and any fruit under 80 grams, I sell to him for 1 yuan per gene. He uses it for juice processing, so the size doesn't matter. The fruit I sell on the market for 79 yuan a box doesn't make any profit at all. It's just to break even. What I actually make money on are these leftover fruits at 1 yuan per gene. 9. The test results won't be ready until this afternoon. So Chloe and I are going to grab a bite to eat. We had just pulled out of the gate when Cecilia and Derek stopped the car. Alex, have you no shame? By stopping Mr. Lee from buying the fruit from VillageThe. Are you trying to take food off the table for the entire village? Cecilia had arrived with her makeup meticulously applied. Now, it was all smudged, her eyes swollen like walnuts. The business at Lou's Manor has nothing to do with me. That's your affair. Out of my way. I honked the horn and hit the gas. Don't think you've got us beat. He's not the only one in town buying kiwi fruit. Plenty of other buyers out there. Alex, you just wait. This isn't over. Derek limped away, shouting impotent rage at the back of my car. I thought back to those few buyers I had introduced them to previously. To prevent the two of them from continuing to scam people using my name, I called each of those buyers one by one. I told them that recently, someone has been going around scamming people using my name, and today, Mr. Lee from Fresh Group almost fell for it. Have them pay attention. Don't trust anyone unless I come to see you in person. I take no responsibility if anything goes wrong. 10. That afternoon, the results came in. All the kiwi fruit from Shija village passed inspection, just as I had expected. On our way back, my phone rang several times. They were all calls from the produce buyers. Someone actually impersonated me to scam them. Good thing I warned them ahead of time, or they would have fallen for it. The car had just pulled up to the front of the house. I saw the villagers gathered around our house again, with my dad and mom surrounded in the middle. I laid on the horn and floored it, charging straight into the crowd. They scattered in a panic. Alex, have you no conscience? What gives you the right to stop them from buying our kiwi fruit? Robert, you need to rein in your son. He swindled us out of our hard-earned money before, and we let it slide. Now he's even stopping others from buying our kiwi fruit. Isn't he cutting off our livelihood? If you don't give us a proper explanation today, you won't get away with this. My parents' faces were ashen, their lips trembling, too furious to speak. I stepped out of the car and shielded them behind me. Where are Cecilia and Derek? Tell them to come out. I scanned the area but couldn't see either of them. If you've got a problem, you deal with us. We won't stand for you picking on those two. The villagers stepped forward one by one, backing the two of them up. Then I'll just call the police. They've been using my name to scam people all over the place. And now they're spreading rumors. Let them explain that to the police. The moment I finished speaking, Cecilia and Derek emerged from the yard across the street. They both looked flustered, clearly guilty and afraid of being caught. You two better start explaining, or you can explain it to the police. We didn't say anything, Derek muttered with his head down. Cecilia looked utterly wronged. The villagers aren't fools. Right and wrong are as clear as day. What's the point of going to the police station? It's not like it was built just for our village. You lot with your wagging tongues, keep that nonsense to yourselves. All right, break it up, everyone, go home and get dinner started. At the critical moment, the village chief stepped forward. With just a few words, he smoothed the whole thing over. My intention was just to scare them. What's the point of calling the police for something like this? There's no evidence and no video footage. Even if we asked those buyers to testify, it wouldn't make much difference. At most, they'd just get a stern talking to. Afterward, I'd still owe them a favor, and a favor like that would easily cost me 10 or 20 grand. I really can't be bothered to argue with them. Who would have thought? Cecilia had to go and stir up trouble again. I have some good news to share with everyone. Alex signed a contract for 2 million Gene. If he fails to deliver on time, he'll have to pay double the compensation. Who else but our village could produce such a massive quantity? Cecilia looked at me with gleeful schadenfreude. The crowd erupted upon hearing the news. At this point, whether Cecilia and the others have found a buyer is no longer important. What matters is that I have to pay double the compensation to the others. They're happy as long as I'm the one suffering. Alex, if you apologize to everyone now, refund 200,000 to each family. And then offer a price of 5 yuan per gene. We might consider selling the kiwi fruit to you. Otherwise, you can expect to pay double the penalty fee. You figure it out. Are we talking millions, or tens of millions? Cecilia seized the chance to threaten me, aiming to kill 3 birds with 1 stone. She wanted me to both admit fault, pay up, and take the produce off her hands. That way, she could solve all her problems and come out looking like the good guy. Her scheme was clever. But before I could even speak, someone else jumped in to object first. No way, 200,000 is definitely not enough. We have over 20 acres of land. You have to pay my family 500,000, or I'm not selling. Same here. In an instant, everyone started arguing all at once. Many saw it as a chance to make outrageous demands, with some even asking me to pay 1 million in compensation. Just like that, they shot down Cecilia's plan to kill 3 birds with 1 stone. The two of them were trapped in the middle of the crowd, unable to get away. I dragged my parents back home. Once the front door was shut, they could argue all they wanted. Well, I never agreed to it. 11. After closing the door, my dad told me that our orchard had been vandalized. On the 2-acre plot on the southwest slope, fruit was scattered all over the ground, about 300 or 400 pounds of it. It was clearly done on purpose. I wanted to go confront them, but my dad stopped me. He knows how people in the village can be, with this kind of underhanded mischief. Even catching someone red-handed wouldn't do any good. They'd just fake an illness as soon as they got to the police station. You're dealing with people in their 50s or 60s. With a whole list of ailments. If they flat out claim you're the one who made them sick, what can you possibly do? There was a case where an outsider leased some land. The moment the harvest was halfway done, a bunch of elderly folks rushed in to glean what was left. It wasn't gleaning, it was outright theft. The leaseholder detained a few of the slower ones. Before the police even arrived, one of them had already collapsed on the ground. They were taken to the hospital. And the leaseholder ended up paying over $30,000 in medical bills. When it comes to people in their 60s or 70s, even the police are at a loss. There's simply no reasoning with this kind of situation. My dad and I talked it over, and we're starting to pick our fruit tomorrow. Our orchard is about 27 acres. I plan to hire extra help to get all the fruit harvested in a single day. Best to avoid any complications. The next morning, I hired over 50 workers from several villages in the area. We worked non-stop until around 4:30 in the afternoon before all the fruit was finally harvested. At the same time, Chloe brought me another piece of good news. She had spoken with people from the neighboring villages, and they were all happy to sell their kiwi fruit to me. On the other hand, Cecilia and Derek have shot themselves in the foot every single day. The moment they open their eyes, someone is already camped outside their door, asking about the acquisition. They have no choice but to leave the house, forced to go out early and come back late each day. I don't need to guess to know they definitely haven't found a buyer. If they had found a buyer, they would have been the first to come and parade the whole village right outside my door to show off. Since they haven't come to gloat, it can only mean they haven't found one. 3 days later, the harvest in VillageThe village officially began. With the goal of gathering 1 million gene of produce within 7 days, to prevent any mishaps, I stayed on site to keep a close eye on things. Chloe used a megaphone to broadcast a looped message. Attention, villagers, please do not put in any bad, rotten, or insect-infested fruit. Do not put them in. I repeat, in previous years, our village was always the first to start harvesting kiwi fruit. This year, that changed to VillageThe village. Quite a few villagers from VillageThe went over to join the crowd and see what was happening. They were gossiping and talking smack while they watched. You really got the short end of the stick selling your fruit to that heartless Alex. They're making a 10 yuan profit off you for every gene. He made over 10 million yuan without lifting a finger, just from the 1 million gene of fruit from your village. Tell me, does he have no conscience? The villagers from VillageThe who came to watch the commotion were bad-mouthing me everywhere. They were egging on those villagers not to sell their kiwi fruit to me, but no one believed them. You can't go around saying things like that. Mr. Alex is a good man, a truly wonderful man. In the past, the fruit from our village always sold for 4 yuan per gene. We never got 5 yuan. This year, not only can we sell it for 5 yuan per gene, but they don't even sort by size. You can earn thousands more per mu of land. The villagers of VillageThe village refuted VillageThe's nonsense with hard facts. Facts speak louder than words. You must not fall for their tricks. This is our hard-earned money. We toil all year and barely make a thing, while he does nothing and rakes in over 10 million. He's getting rich by sucking our blood. The villagers of VillageThe weren't ready to give up and wanted to keep trying to reason with them. Little did they know. This infuriated the villagers of VillageThe village, who were in the middle of harvesting their fruit. They took off their gloves and encircled several villagers from VillageThe. Mr. Alex is a good man. He deserves to earn this money. Exactly, a buyer with a conscience like his. He's bound to make a fortune. A person this good not getting rich. What kind of world would that be? I heard Mr. Alex isn't buying kiwi fruit from your village this year. What are you going to do? Have you found another buyer? Your village was always the first to sell in previous years. What happened this time? The villagers from VillageThe were left speechless and, being on VillageThe village's turf, didn't dare to cause any trouble. They could only leave, grumbling under their breath. 12. Soon after, the surrounding villages also began their fruit harvest. The villagers of VillageThe had reached their breaking point. Every morning, the first thing they did was gather outside Cecilia's house. Since Derek's father was the village chief, the villagers didn't dare to confront him at his home. Instead, they directed all their frustration at Cecilia. One day, as soon as the two of them returned from outside, they were surrounded by the villagers. "Cecilia, have you and Derek found a buyer yet? The fruit is already starting to fall. If we don't harvest it soon, it'll just rot in the field. Have you managed to find a buyer yet or not?" As I walked over, Cecilia's expression suddenly tightened. Her voice rose several notches. "Rest assured, everyone, we've already secured a buyer. The extra large fruits, over 130 grams, are 79 yuan per box. The large fruits, between 90 and 130 grams, are 39 yuan per box. Each box weighs over 5 jin, 79 yuan a box. That works out to over 15 yuan per jin. Are you serious? Cecilia, you've got to be kidding me." Upon hearing it was 79 per box, everyone was in disbelief at the price. They all began to voice their doubts. "Don't worry, there's no way we'd ever try to pull a fast one on you all. We've hired 3 live streamers. Live stream shopping is all the rage right now. We'll sell it for 79 a box with free shipping. Racking up hundreds of thousands of orders in one night will be a piece of cake. When the time comes, it's going to be an absolute frenzy." Cecilia and Derek's words had the villagers practically itching to get started, at 79 yuan a box. And with each household having tens of thousands of pounds of it, they're raking in hundreds of thousands in one go. No wonder they're so tempted. I know all about live stream selling. It's absolutely huge right now. I've heard they can sell hundreds of millions in a single night. Cecilia, Derek, you two are really something. You're 100 times better than some of those heartless folks. You two have done our village a huge favor this time. We'll definitely give you both a big red envelope as a thank you." That's right, a big red envelope. Every household will chip in, and the minimum can't be less than 5,000. Leo, with your family's 20+ acres of land, your share should be at least 10,000. All right, 10,000 it is. Leo agreed with a hearty laugh. That whole spiel was just for my benefit. Empty talk costs nothing. And I couldn't be bothered to listen any longer. I had just turned to leave when Cecilia called out to me. "Alex, did you see that? Don't think we can't get by without you. Without shady dealers like you, the rest of us could actually make a decent profit." I couldn't even be bothered to turn my head. I just shut the door and went inside. I hope they can still smile this happily in a few days. 13. On day 7, the harvest in Shijia village was successfully completed. Meanwhile, the 3 streamers Cecilia hired have finally arrived. Cecilia waited on them hand and foot every single day, arranging private cars and personal attendants. She was more attentive than the eunuch serving the Empress Dowager Cixi. After several days of running around, I still had no idea how the sales were going. On the afternoon of September 15th, I was on my way back from the city and passed by Cecilia's house, only to find it had been completely trashed. Both of the big stainless steel doors were splattered with human excrement. It was so disgusting I nearly threw up my lunch. All the ground floor windows were smashed, and the main door was shut tight. There was no telling if anyone was home. When I got home, I was shocked to find a crowd of people gathered outside my door again. I saw red instantly. "Is this ever going to end? You keep showing up at my house every other day. Do you really think I'm some kind of pushover?" I grabbed the nearest stick and charged at them. "Even if it costs me everything I own and lands me in jail, I won't let my parents suffer this humiliation anymore. Alex, come take our harvest. No need to apologize, and no need for a refund. Just 5 yuan per jin is fine, and my family's." 14. As I charged over with a stick in hand, their tones suddenly shifted. One by one, with long faces, they began begging me to buy their fruit. I ignored them, turned around, and drove the car into my own yard. "Alex, please buy my family's fruit. I've poured over 4 years of my life into this orchard." This year's harvest finally reached 3,000 jin, and if no one buys it, I'll be ruined. "Alex, my child is in school, and we have a sick person at home. We're counting on this fruit to get by. You have to take our harvest, or I don't know how we'll survive." My yard was full of people again. This time was different. This time, everyone stood in the yard, and no one dared to step into my family's main hall. I told my parents to stay inside and not come out. I moved a chair and sat at the entrance of the main hall, not saying a word. Alex, we're all neighbors here. Last time, we were in the wrong for believing the lies of those two good-for-nothings, Cecilia and Derek. Those two scoundrels didn't sell a single pound of our fruit for us. Instead, they swindled us out of over 100,000. Now they've all vanished without a trace. The villagers began pouring out their grievances to me. No wonder Cecilia's house got trashed. She was the one who ran off. I scanned the area but didn't see the village chief anywhere. His place was probably smashed up too. This is truly delightful. The fruit hasn't even sold. How could we possibly swindle you out of your money? I suppressed a laugh and asked with feigned seriousness. Those three streamers demanded a so-called slotting fee up front, 30,000 yuan each. They brought a total of 11 people. They stayed and ate at a hotel in the county town every day, costing us over 17,000 in just 3 days. They swindled us out of over 120,000 yuan, and only managed to sell about 30 orders for us in total. And get this, more than half of those orders were placed by themselves. The crowd poured out their grievances, their voices thick with emotion. After hearing it all, I just felt it wasn't satisfying enough. They got off way too easy. They didn't run into one of those ruthless streamers who'd charge 30,000 for a slot. Clearly, they've never been burned before. Alex, if you're gonna blame anyone, blame those two sons of bitches. If it weren't for them stirring up trouble, nobody would have misunderstood you. Don't you worry, we'll make sure you get your payback. Those two can forget about ever setting foot in our village again. If they dare set foot in our village again, we'll break their legs. These villagers are now pinning everyone's mistakes squarely on Cecilia and her companion. They've passed the buck with surgical precision. For that reason alone, there's no way I'm accepting their produce. Anyone who gets involved with people who are only there when they need you and disappear when they don't is asking for trouble. I can't take it, I said flatly. You can't take it. How could you possibly not be able to take it? You've taken from all the nearby villages. So why can't you take from your own? There are over 80 households in our Lu family village. Go back a few generations, and we're all tangled up in family ties. You can't side with outsiders over your own kin. The moment they heard I couldn't take it, the villagers immediately got worked up. 1 second they were all humble and pleading, the next they were back to cold, accusatory questioning. I thought to myself with a sneer, a leopard can't change its spots. 15. The courtyard erupted into chaos in an instant. Just as the situation was about to spiral out of control, the village chief appeared once again, right on time. Alex, I'm begging you, I'll get down on my knees for you. You can't just stand by and watch everyone's fruit rot in the fields, can you? The village chief walked up to me and, without a word, pulled out his old trick of threatening to kneel again. The previous 2 times, he had tried to intimidate me with the same kneeling act. Back then, I was young and soft-hearted. I never actually let him go through with it. Every time he cried out that he was going to kneel, either my father would rush to pull him up, or I would hurry to support him. Not once did he ever actually go through with it. This time, he was pulling the same old stunt again. I'd like to see who's left to catch him this time. As soon as the village chief finished speaking, my backside was glued to the chair. I knew if I didn't get up, he genuinely wouldn't kneel. I leisurely pulled out a cigarette and lit it. He still hadn't knelt down. Alex, the village chief is your elder. How can you make him kneel? Alex, just agree already. If word gets out that the village chief knelt before you, how will you ever show your face in public again? Seeing that I still hadn't gotten up, the chief's lackeys quickly stepped in to smooth things over. I leisurely blew a smoke ring. Chief, cut the act. The best time for picking has already been missed because of your son. Who would dare take these soft fruits now? If the journey is any distance at all, they'll likely rot on the way. It's mid-September now, the fruit is overripe, the shipping losses alone would be too much for anyone to bear. The fruit from Lujialu, over 2 million gene of it, would take at least 10 days just to pick. If we wait another 10 days, the whole lot will have rotted to mush. Who in their right mind would take it now? Alex, don't push your luck. You're taking our village's fruit today, whether you like it or not. The soft approach didn't work. The village chief's face hardened, and he actually started playing rough with me. My dad told me long ago, he didn't become village chief by being a pushover. You know, the shady things he's done are more numerous than the grains of salt I've eaten in my life. As soon as he finished speaking, a few old men shuffled in from outside. swaying with each step as if they might keel over at any moment. You know these men, don't you? If you don't buy the village's fruit, they're moving in with you for the day. Of course I knew these old men. They're either paralyzed, or have heart disease or Parkinson's. The average age is over 80. My own father would have to call them, sir. Remember that Mr. Young, the one who leased the land a few years back. He was way more capable than you. And look what happened. He still lost tens of thousands. Just think of the consequences if something were to happen to these people in your home. That's the kind of tactic our village chief uses. I couldn't come up with such a dirty trick even if I tried. It's beyond me. These old men could keel over at any moment. If one of them actually died in my yard, who can say for sure? Alex, you're still young and don't understand how these things work. We're all from the same village. There's no grudge that can't be mended. Listen to your uncle. Just take the fruit from our village. I'm the village chief. I can speak for everyone. This year, our village's price will be 4-5 yuan per gene. We'll let you make an extra 50 cents on this pound. Consider it our way of making it up to you. 16. Just as I was about to tell the village chief to give up on the idea, the sound of police sirens suddenly pierced the air. My father walked out of the house. He was the one who called the police. He gave me a resolute look. Robert, what's the point of calling the police? Do you have any evidence? The substation crew just came to check the lines. The village lost power, so with no electricity or internet, the surveillance cameras are useless. The sound of police sirens grew closer, but the village chief showed no sign of panic. If anything, he became even more brazen. He turned and gave a meaningful look to the men behind him. I knew it. He was definitely about to pull some dirty trick. Who says I don't have proof? I pressed my car key, and the sound of the horn finally cut him off. My dashcam records continuously. From the moment I drove in, every single move in this yard has been captured. I suggest you come clean now, and save yourselves a trip to jail. Not only did his son screw you over this year, making your fruit unsellable and costing you hundreds of thousands, but now he's trying to get you thrown in jail. Are you really that foolish? The police were standing at the door. I started shouting at the top of my lungs. As soon as I said that, and with the police right behind us, someone immediately cracked under the pressure. Officer, this has nothing to do with us. The village chief tricked us into coming. He told us to all crowd into Alex's house and force him to buy our fruit. Officer, my grandfather has nothing to do with this. He's 87 years old and doesn't understand what's going on. It was the village chief's idea. He told my grandpa to come, saying that if Alex refused to buy our fruit, my grandpa should just lie down in Alex's yard. That way, Alex would have no choice but to give in. Officer, my father is in the same situation. He's 70 years old and just had a heart stent put in last year. The village chief said that if the police came, my father should lie on the ground and pretend to be sick. That way, Alex would be in deep trouble. When a wall starts to fall, everyone gives it a push. When the tree falls, the monkeys scatter. They started confessing everything before the police even began their investigation. You fools, do you think I'm doing this for myself? I'm only doing it so Alex will buy your fruit. Fine, just let your fruit rot in the fields then. The village chief had been betrayed by everyone, leaving him no choice but to admit it. We have both eyewitness testimony and physical evidence. That's a load of crap. You're doing this for your son. Your son, Derek, screwed everyone over and then just skipped town. You know everyone's out for your son's blood. That's why you're trying to clean up his mess, so he can come back to the village. 17. Leaving the police station, I took my parents straight to the city. Going back to the village now would only invite trouble. The kiwi fruit in Lujialu will just rot on the ground. There's nothing anyone can do about it. The local retail market is already saturated. The fruit has to be shipped elsewhere, but there just isn't enough time. If I go home, they'll definitely be blocking my door again. The villagers have their tactics. First the crying, then the making a scene, and finally the suicide threats. When they all gather at my doorstep, that's when the real chaos begins. The next day, I went back to the village alone. I thought about it. Not going back wasn't right either. The fruit would surely rot in the fields, and if I didn't return, the villagers would definitely accuse me of turning my back on them in their time of need. I'll be run out of this village for good. I have to go back to the village and clear everything up, so they don't hold a grudge against me. Uncles, aunts, elders. It's not that I, Alex, don't want to buy your fruit. It's that nobody wants it anymore. Just think about it. The fruit's as soft as a baked sweet potato now. How are we supposed to ship it? All we have are mountain roads here. The fruit will spoil before we even get it out of the village. Who would want it by the time we haul it over? With that troublemaker of a village chief out of the picture, the villagers seemed much more honest and simple. I appealed to their emotions and reasoned with them. I spent over an hour trying to talk them down, addressing them respectfully as uncle and auntie the whole time. Only then did they finally calm down. They were all weeping and wailing, beating their chests in utter anguish. Then, in the midst of their sobbing, someone, no one knows who started it, took off running toward the village chief's house, and the whole crowd surged after them. The village chief's 3-story villa is probably a goner. 18. While ransacking the village chief's house, the villagers accidentally broke into a hidden room. The room was stacked with piles of cash and gold bars. The police made a preliminary calculation, over 2.7 million in cash and more than 3 kilograms of gold bars. Afterwards, the village chief voluntarily confessed to the crime. A few years back, when he helped the village sell kiwi fruit, he had been taking kickbacks all along. The most egregious instance was when the buyer skipped town. The buyer had paid a 50% deposit up front. The village chief intended to distribute the money once the final payment arrived. Little did he know, the buyer vanished right after collecting the fruit. The village chief, in cahoots with Cecilia's father, Philip, pocketed the entire sum. At the time, they paid a deposit of 1 million. The reason Cecilia and her son are targeting me is entirely because the village chief and Philip stirred up trouble between us, the year the whole village was swindled. My family was the only one that got paid for our fruit. The villagers suggested they come to me. The village chief and Philip objected at the time, but with so many people in favor, they had no choice but to hand over the lucrative task of finding a buyer to me. Little did they know, I just kept getting better and better at it, leaving them with no way to get involved. After Cecilia and Derek graduated, it gave them a renewed sense of hope, which led to everything that followed. 3 months later, the corruption case involving the village chief and Philip went to trial at the Municipal Intermediate People's Court. The village chief was found to have embezzled over 4.3 million yuan in total, resulting in a sentence of life imprisonment and the confiscation of all his property. Philip was sentenced to 12 years in prison and had all his assets confiscated for embezzling over 2.4 million yuan. Story 2. When the earthquake came, Mom didn't hesitate to run out while holding my younger brother, leaving me, a young child, behind. Afterwards, I cried loudly. Mom said, "It was just a small earthquake. You're just being overly sensitive. Even though I didn't take you with me when I escaped, you're still fine, aren't you?" She clearly knew that if it weren't for the 2 big golden retrievers that protected me, I might have lost my life. I didn't die, but I lost the 2 big golden retrievers and my legs. Later, accompanied by the surviving little golden retriever, I gradually got out of the shadows. Grandma thought that having a dog would affect my younger brother's studies, so she secretly sold it. I hysterically questioned why she sold my dog. Mom slapped me hard and said, "It was just a dog. Is it worth yelling at your grandma?" They didn't know that I had been diagnosed with severe depression, and the little golden retriever was my only salvation. That night, I forced myself to climb onto the balcony and jumped off. When I opened my eyes, I was back on the day the earthquake came. 1. The aroma of the food wafted into my nose. Along with it was Mom's gentle voice. "Dean, Mom has made your favorite sweet and sour pork. You should eat an extra bowl later." Then came my younger brother's impatient voice. Got it, got it. It's so annoying." I looked in the direction of the voice. Mom, wearing an apron, was busy in the kitchen, and my younger brother was sitting on the sofa watching TV. Mom didn't have white hair, and my younger brother was still 8 years old. The 2 big golden retrievers were lying at my feet, sound asleep, and I hadn't lost my legs because of that earthquake. Everything proved to me that I had been reborn. I was reborn on the day the earthquake came, if I remembered correctly. When Mom served the stir-fried sweet and sour pork, the ground began to shake. Realizing this, without saying a word, I grabbed the collars of the 2 golden retrievers, one in each hand, and dragged them towards the yard. As for my younger brother, I told him that there was a nest of swallows under the eaves on the 2nd floor. Sure enough, my younger brother, who had been watching the cartoon, immediately became excited and opened the door to rush to the 2nd floor. Finally, The moment I walked into the yard and my younger brother ran up to the second floor, the ground began to shake, too. Just like in my previous life, the moment the house started to shake. Mom threw away the sweet and sour pork in her hand and rushed to the living room. Seeing that my 75-pound younger brother wasn't downstairs, she started shouting my younger brother's name hysterically and searching the room. When she heard my younger brother's voice coming from upstairs, she rushed out quickly, never mentioning my name throughout the process. However, almost at the same time she rushed into the yard, the whole building collapsed with a loud crash. The ground was still shaking. And I had reached the safe area. I slumped to the ground, and the two big golden retrievers were snuggling beside me. I hugged them tightly. It was great that they were still alive, and my legs weren't broken either. Unexpectedly, while I was still immersed in the joy of surviving the disaster, Mom suddenly rushed into the ruins and started searching for my younger brother. She didn't stop crying until she found my younger brother with blood on his legs after her nails were turned over. After crying, as if she had thought of something, she pounced on me, grabbing my hair and hitting me. "You dead girl, you saw the earthquake coming and didn't even shout. You only cared about these two beasts and ignored your younger brother. Why wasn't it you who had an accident but your younger brother?" 3. My face stung, and my ears were buzzing. This scene seemed to pull me back to my previous life. At that time, I was pressed under the ruins and watched as Mom protected my younger brother in her arms. The two golden retrievers protected me from left and right, and they were already barely breathing. Afterwards, when I was rescued by the rescue team, I cried and questioned why she only saved my younger brother and ignored me. Mom said that she didn't mean to. When the earthquake came, her first reaction was to run with my younger brother, and she really forgot about me. She even posted a short essay online with the title, "A small earthquake made my 11-year-old daughter hate me for a lifetime." My legs were almost crushed, and I had to face amputation. Because of the righteous comments from netizens, Mom spoke sarcastically to me in various ways. She called me overly sensitive and narrow-minded, and said that I was an ungrateful person. My younger brother also showed off everywhere, saying that Mom loved him the most and that I was a burden. I gradually fell into depression because of their scolding and the death of the two big golden retrievers. Later, when I was in a wheelchair and mourning Jojo and Coco, I saw the little golden retriever they gave birth to in the ruins. Since then, there was a glimmer of light in my life, but who would have known that they would push me into the abyss again? I still remember the gloating look on my younger brother's face when I found out that Grandma sold my golden retriever. He looked at me with a bad smile and said, "You dead cripple, Grandma sold your dog to the dog meat vendor. Too bad I didn't get to taste the dog meat. It must be delicious. You said you have depression. I think you're just pretending. If you were really depressed, you would have died long ago. How could you still be alive?" Perhaps seeing that I didn't reply, Mom flew into a rage again. She slapped me hard again and cried, "I'm talking to you. Are you deaf? Why are you looking at me like that? Am I wrong?" At this time, many people who had survived the disaster gathered around. Thanks to Mom's loud voice, everyone looked at me. I burst into tears and said, "How could I know there would be an earthquake? I'm not a fortune teller. Aren't you glad that I escaped too? Instead, you hit me and questioned why it wasn't me who had an accident. Aren't I your own child? If I hadn't taken Jojo and Coco out in advance and it was me who had an accident, would you scold my younger brother and wonder why it wasn't him?" After my questioning, Mom was stunned on the spot. The others present also started talking all at once. "Yeah, Esme's mom, you said that both children are equally dear to you. You should be glad that Esme is okay. Why are you hitting the child? Instead of scolding your daughter, you should go and check on your son. You're lucky, unlike my family, my child's grandfather and father." The person who spoke last started wiping away tears. In the direction where her gaze landed were two relatives who had been dug out by everyone but had already lost their vital signs. Probably reminded by this, Mom realized that her younger brother was still under the ruins. She cursed and rushed over with several others to dig out her younger brother whose legs were still in the ruins. When she saw that her younger brother's lower body was covered in blood, she cried her heart out, Dean, don't scare Mom, look at your sister, Dean." Mom just said a few words to her, and she came up with a lot of reasons. "Dean will definitely be good when he grows up, unlike your sister. She will definitely be an ungrateful person." I didn't refute. Instead, I sneered in my heart, "Mom, since you've already decided that I'm an ungrateful person, if I don't live up to your expectations, won't you be disappointed? But now that it's my younger brother who's paralyzed, I really want to know how you will deal with it. 5. My younger brother managed to save his life. As I expected, his legs were almost crushed, and he had to be amputated from the root of his thighs. Mom wept all day long. Every time she saw me, there was a hint of resentment in her eyes. But when I looked at her, that resentment disappeared in an instant. Instead, she said coldly, "Esme, your younger brother is like this now, you should study hard. Mom still has to go to work. After your younger brother is discharged from the hospital, the responsibility of taking care of him will fall on you." With these words, she revealed the truth of why she could tolerate me, but I'm no longer that easy target, so I said, "Mom, I'm only in the 5th grade, I'm so stupid. How can I take care of my younger brother, and I still have to go to school? How about this, you resign and take care of my younger brother, or you can ask Grandma to take care of him." Perhaps remembering all the times she had disliked me for being stupid, and thinking that I was indeed unreliable, Mom finally sighed and said, "Fine, I'll beg Grandma to come and take care of your younger brother." In fact, in my previous life, Mom didn't consider who would take care of me at all. Even when I was in the hospital, she was extremely perfunctory. Most of the time, she just brought my younger brother to the hospital for a quick look and then found an excuse to leave. Even when I was in the hospital, I often went hungry. It was the aunt in the next bed who couldn't stand it and shared some of her food with me every time she ate. At that time, Mom was afraid of spending money and took me home after I had been in the hospital for only a week. Grandma made an excuse that the aunt whom my father newly married was about to give birth, and she ignored me. Mom was busy going on blind dates and didn't come home at night after getting to know a new boyfriend. My younger brother ate well with Mom, leaving me at home hungry and full. When I could move around in a wheelchair, Mom started ordering me around. As for my younger brother, who was only a year and a half younger than me, he didn't have to do anything. I was scolded by Mom. I swept the floor, wiped the table, cooked, and stir-fried dishes while sitting in a wheelchair. My younger brother played games and called me a cripple. Every time this happened, I would cry out of sadness and hysteria. Mom smiled and blamed me. "Your younger brother is young and doesn't know any better. Can't you just let him be?" I couldn't bear it anymore and questioned. "My younger brother is younger than me, but I'm disabled. My legs are broken." But how did she reply to me at that time? She suddenly changed her expression and said with disdain in her eyes, "Yes, you're disabled, but it wasn't me or your younger brother who made you disabled. You can only blame your bad luck." After that, I learned to keep my mouth shut and stay silent. 6. Because of his disability, unlike me in the previous life, this time my younger brother took the initiative to drop out of school. Grandma, after Mom's pleading, although she complained, she still agreed to take care of my younger brother. Mom was able to continue working. Moreover, for the sake of my younger brother, she didn't go on blind dates everywhere or have a new boyfriend. Instead, besides work, she focused all her attention on my younger brother. In fact, Mom and Dad had already divorced, and Dad had reorganized his family half a year ago. Grandma lived a carefree life usually, even though she didn't care about either side. Considering that there was a grandson here, she agreed to Mom's request. She took good care of my younger brother, whether he was disabled or not. They didn't reduce their love for my younger brother at all. Mom even bought a game console for my younger brother to pass the boring days. But even so, my younger brother's temper became very strange and irritable. Facing such a younger brother, I, who was still young, could only stay as far away as possible and focus all my energy on studying. In my previous life, because I became disabled. Mom didn't ask for my opinion and directly handled my withdrawal from school. So far, not having the opportunity to go to school was the biggest regret in my life. Now that I was reborn, I vowed to study hard on my own, take good care of the 2 big golden retrievers, and get out of this home. Heaven helps those who persevere. With my persistent efforts, I was admitted to the best middle school in the county as I wished. When Mom learned this news, instead of being happy, she was worried. That night, Mom specially called Grandma and they came to my room. They took turns trying to brainwash me. Mom said, "Esme, you're already a grown girl. Mom knows that you study well and are sensible, so Mom hopes that you can stay in the county to go to high school." In this way, you can come home after school and help mom take care of your younger brother. Grandma chimed in, yeah, Esme, your mom has been working so hard. If it weren't for you, your mom wouldn't have to work so hard to earn that little money. Now that I'm getting older, it's very tiring for me to take care of your younger brother. Your parents are divorced. When you get married in the future, the only one you can count on is your younger brother. I interrupted Grandma's words. You keep saying that you're working hard, but it's all for Dean, not for me, also. Dean's legs are disabled. I study well. As long as I study hard, get into a good university, and get a good job after graduation, tell me, who should count on whom? After these words, Grandma and Mom fell silent at the same time. I guessed that they should now know who was more valuable. 7. After that conversation, Mom and Grandma's attitude towards me changed. While they were nicer to me than before, my younger brother was still the first in their hearts, but it didn't matter. The most important thing was that Mom allowed me to go to the Municipal Key High School as I wished. After I started high school, I lived on campus and only went home once a month. I received my living expenses on time, and Mom would call me to show false concern from time to time. She even took good care of the 3 golden retrievers. I accepted all of this, until one time when I went home. I went to the living room to get some water at night and heard the conversation between Mom and my younger brother. The door was slightly ajar, and Mom walked into my younger brother's room with a plate. My younger brother was playing games and hardly looked up. Mom leaned in to please him and said with a smile in a low voice, "Eat quickly. These are the braised chicken legs specially made for you. Your sister doesn't have any." My younger brother pursed his lips and finally showed a smile. "Mom, I'm disabled. You still love me." Mom kissed him on the face and said, "Of course, no matter what you become, you're Mom's most beloved baby. What about my sister? You're so nice to her." Mom said again, "Your sister, silly son." Mom is being nice to her for you. After she graduates and finds a good job, won't the money she earns be used to find you a wife? Mom is secretly saving money. Tell Mom what you want to eat and what you want to play, no matter how hard and tired Mom is. It's all worth it for you, I sneered. My heart felt even more desolate. In my previous life, I was disabled and at home, and everyone despised me, especially my mother. She always regarded me as a burden, and several times, she left me at my father's place. But my father had already formed a new family and didn't care about whether I lived or died at all. One memory that's deeply ingrained in my mind was in the winter when I was 16. My mother disliked that I dropped a grain of rice while eating. She suddenly went crazy, slapped me dozens of times, and finally, pushed my wheelchair and left me downstairs at my father's house. It was very cold. I was wearing an old and thin down jacket that she didn't want, below my waist. I was only wearing a pair of thin pants. At that time, it was snowing heavily. The snow piled up thick on me. I was shivering. I begged my mother not to abandon me and cried out for my father to let me in and take shelter, but neither of them showed up, and I almost froze to death. In the end, someone in the community saw me and called the police for me. The police contacted my mother and told her that if she did such a thing again, she would be punished for the crime of abandonment and would go to jail. My mother took me back and angrily slapped me a few more times, and then told me her true feelings. "When I divorced your father, I thought that bringing you over would mean you could help out. Who knew you'd be such a burden? You're in this state. What's the point of still living? Why don't you just die?" Sure enough, love is love, and lack of love is lack of love. After hearing all this, I didn't say anything. I just silently remembered it in my heart. I knew that my efforts would pay off one day. 8. Soon, I successfully entered a key university. Because I had a balanced diet and often ran for exercise, I was healthy and strong. Unlike in my previous life when I had muscle atrophy and was thin and small, now I was even half a head taller than my mother. When I was a sophomore, in a good mood, I bought a mina. Whenever I was tired from studying or after finishing my part-time job, I taught it to speak. During the summer vacation, I even took the little mina home, saying it was to relieve my younger brother's boredom. When my younger brother saw the beautiful mina, he happily said, "Even though you're a burden who can't earn money, at least you have some sense of self-awareness and know how to please the only man in the family." I smiled but didn't say anything. Instead, I hung the mina above his head, perhaps seeing that I was beautiful and graceful. My younger brother's eyes turned gloomy when he looked at me. He pursed his lips and said coldly, "So what if you're good-looking and in university, in the end? You'll still earn money for my wife." Before I could retort, the mina hanging above my head suddenly said, "You cripple, hey, you cripple." The mina was very talkative, and once it started talking, it couldn't stop. Unfortunately, since I bought it, I had only taught it this sentence. I laughed so hard that I bent over. My younger brother's face turned from white to green, and he was instantly broken down. Finally, he roared, "Esme, did you do it on purpose? You must have done it on purpose." Using this mina to anger me, "Mom, Grandma, look at this burden who can't earn money." My younger brother's shouting quickly caught the attention of my mother and grandma. My mother rushed in first, but when she heard the little mina still shouting, "Cripple," she immediately started scolding me. "Esme, what do you mean? Your younger brother is already pitiful with his broken legs. You even bought a dead bird to laugh at him." Grandma even rushed up and wanted to take down the mina I had hung up and throw it out. Unfortunately, at 5 meters tall, even if she jumped, she couldn't reach it. Instead, I pushed Grandma, who wanted to hit me, away fiercely and said coldly, "It's just a bird. Why are you so defensive? And it's not wrong. Should it call him long-legged instead of cripple? I'm a student at a key university now. You all have to count on me. Besides, I'm under a lot of study pressure. What else can I do but find some fun?" My mother was so angry that she trembled all over. Since she couldn't beat me, she could only scold me. "Don't you have any conscience? He's your own younger brother." I laughed loudly. "You said it, my conscience was eaten by a dog, so don't count on me from now on." That night, my mother didn't call me for dinner, but when I smelled the fragrance of the food, I went out to eat by myself. My mother threw down her chopsticks and said, "I didn't cook for you." I unceremoniously picked a plate of my favorite food and put it in my bowl, making them even angrier. In the following days, I continued to stay at home, with everything served to me. I also took the mina to Dean's room from time to time. No one could do anything to me. 9. That night, I heard my mother and Grandma whispering in the room. Grandma said, "Let her continue. She's like a grasshopper after autumn. She won't be able to jump for a few more days, when she goes to school. Don't give her the living expenses. When she realizes her mistake, she'll beg you to transfer money to her. By the way, sell those dead dogs. They eat more than people every day." I once begged, but it was in my previous life. At that time, even though I was depressed, in order to prevent my little golden retriever from being tortured after my death, I still struggled to live. But they went on a trip during the National Day and left me alone at home. I had no legs and was inconvenient to move. There was only enough food at home to last for 2 days. Even the water was cut off. During that time, I called them, but both my father and mother refused to answer. After the food ran out, I didn't know who to ask for help. When I and the 3 golden retrievers were so hungry that we were weak, my mother posted photos of the 3 of them on a trip in the moments and captioned it, "The greatest happiness in my life is having my beloved baby by my side," when I was extremely hungry. I could only take the 3 golden retrievers and climb down the stairs to look for food in the garbage. When I was thirsty, I found plastic bottles and filled them with tap water from the property's public toilet to drink. Despair surrounded me, and I hated every one of them, but I didn't even have tears of hatred. I could only drag my broken body and hold on until they came back. So I was extremely grateful that God gave me a chance to start over. When school started this time, I took the 3 golden retrievers with me. Coco and Jojo were already very old, and I knew they wouldn't be with me for long, but I still did my best to rent a house outside so that they could enjoy their old age. Perhaps seeing that I didn't respond, my mother took the initiative to call me a month after school started. First, she pretended that nothing had happened, and then she probed and asked, "Esme, you know it's not easy for Mom to support you in school all these years. Don't forget Mom's efforts for you. You'll graduate soon. Mom is thinking that when you start working and get your salary, you can give it to Mom, and then Mom can enjoy a good life." I stopped pretending and smiled and asked back, "Mom, I haven't graduated yet, and you're already eyeing my salary after I start working. Stop pretending. You supported me to go to university just so you can suck my blood and make me support you in the future. Have you forgotten what you said before? You said I'm an ungrateful person. How can an ungrateful person be a good girl?" My mother was completely enraged. She was so angry that she gasped for breath and finally said harshly, "Esme, you're really ungrateful. Why didn't I strangle you when you were born?" I still smiled and said, "Mom, you've raised me so big. Don't you think it's too late to say these things now?" This time, she was so angry that she hung up the phone directly. And I blocked all her contact information before she could do anything. 10. In fact, after entering university, I had been doing part-time jobs. I also asked for more living expenses every month, saved money by being thrifty, and saved the extra part. I even found a senior who wrote novels and learned how to write novels from her. Through my efforts, I also had a considerable income from the manuscript fees. You know, in my previous life, before the National Day, the motherland was prosperous. And the new actions shocked the world and became the most brilliant existence. At that time, the stock market also started to soar a few days before the National Day, especially one stock was like a dark horse, and everyone who invested in it made money, and I didn't miss this opportunity. I used all the money I saved in the past 2 years to buy the stock that would soar in my previous life for short-term investment and made a profit, so cutting off the living expenses didn't matter to me at all. Throughout the semester, my mother didn't give me any more living expenses, and I lived the life I had always dreamed of. I went to work during the day and wrote and played with the dogs at night. The winter and summer vacations were even more pleasant. Unfortunately, the peaceful life was always broken by someone. Soon, my mother asked relatives to inquire about my current situation. The person who came sent a WeChat message asking how I was doing at school and how I was getting by since my mother didn't give me living expenses. I deliberately pretended to be poor and said that I didn't have money and couldn't even afford to eat. I could only go to the cafeteria and shamelessly drink some free soup and water every day. The person told my mother about my situation. Soon, the relative sent me a screenshot of the conversation between my mother and her. When my mother learned that I was living a miserable life, she said triumphantly that I was an ungrateful person and deserved it. Until a semester later, my mother called and finally found out that I had blocked all her contact information. She panicked and asked relatives to tell me that as long as I admitted my mistake, she would transfer money to me. I smiled and told the relative, "No need, I was lying to her before. In fact, I have enough to eat and drink and I'm very happy." My mother was really angry. She lost her temper with the relative and finally, in a fit of rage, spoke ill of me. I also learned from the relative that my mother spread rumors about me. She told the people around her that I blocked her and she couldn't contact me, but I was living a good life without worrying about food and drink. She also said that I was good looking and since she didn't give me living expenses but I could live comfortably, I must be kept by someone, otherwise. Where did I get so much food and drink? After all, many girls in university became mistresses. This time, I just smiled it off. I also blocked the relative's contact information. 11. The year that I sent Coco and Jojo away, I successfully graduated from university. They left peacefully, leaving their child Declan by my side. I moved out of the place where I used to live and successfully applied for a job as a screenwriter in a big company, after creating several bestsellers. I bought a small apartment with all my savings and even got a driver's license and bought a car. I went to work and created during the weekdays and took Declan to the suburbs to enjoy the scenery on weekends. In the past few years, I also heard some news about my mother and father. I heard that my father wasn't doing well. He was old and was laid off by the company. He couldn't find a new job either. He used all his savings and borrowed money to buy an electric car and started running Didi. But he found that the platform took a large commission and the competition was fierce, so he couldn't earn much money. His stepmother disliked that he had no money and was useless. They had a big quarrel and she wanted a divorce. He was in constant turmoil. Later, my father had no choice but to get a divorce, even to fight for the custody of the children. He left the house with nothing. Unfortunately, after the divorce, he found that the 2 children he had fought so hard to raise weren't his biological children. In a fit of anger, he abandoned the 2 children and lost both his money and the children. At this time, he remembered how good my mother was and went to her to ask for a reconciliation, and my mother actually agreed. However, birds of a feather flocked together. The 2 of them didn't get along well, even after they remarried. They quarreled a lot, big quarrels every 3 days and small quarrels every 2 days. The 2 of them had no money and the resentment grew, so not long after, the 2 of them, who had remarried, came up with an idea and set their sights on me again. unfortunately, neither my father nor my mother, nor any of the relatives knew where I was, until finally, they started threatening me and spreading the news everywhere that if I didn't go home, they would call the police and say that I was dead and cancel my household registration. When I heard this news, I was amused. Their ignorance was really ridiculous. My household registration had already been moved away when I was in university, and even if the household registration was to be cancelled because of my death, it had to go through the formal legal process. So, in the face of their useless shouting, I just chose to ignore them. In fact, the reason I paid attention to their news wasn't that I wanted to know whether they were doing well or not, but that I was waiting for an opportunity that would allow me to offset all the resentment from my previous life. 12. In fact, after I died, my soul lingered in the human world for a while. When my mother saw my body, she pretended to wipe her tears in front of everyone and cried loudly. But behind everyone's back, she cursed me. She asked me why I didn't die far away and had to die downstairs. She said, "You knew that this house was going to be sold to buy a wedding house for your younger brother, right? That's why you deliberately jumped off the building to disgust us and make this house unable to be sold. You didn't even die far away, you were a burden when you were alive, and now you're still despised even after death." She even planned to dig a hole in the suburbs and bury me directly. But because it was not allowed by law, she could only take me back to our hometown. Even so, they buried me hastily, but they were very attentive. They found a very famous old Taoist priest to perform a ritual, trying to trap my soul underground and prevent me from being reincarnated. After learning all this, I kowtowed and begged the old Taoist priest for mercy and told him everything I had experienced. The old Taoist priest sympathized with me. Instead of making me unable to be reincarnated as my mother wanted, he opened the door of life for me and let me have a chance to start over. I still remember the scene at that time. After the old Taoist priest chanted the incantation, he silently added, "She's also a poor soul. I'm willing to trade 20 years of my life to give her a chance." Then a golden light wrapped around me and sent me back to the day when the earthquake happened. Before that, something else happened. A few days after I died, there was another earthquake in my hometown. That earthquake wasn't very strong. I don't know if it was because the house wasn't sturdy or if it was retribution, but while the entire village remained unharmed, only our building was reduced to pieces. Unfortunately, they weren't at home that time, otherwise, so, that earthquake was exactly the opportunity one had been waiting for. As the day I'd been anticipating drew near, I dialed my mother's cell phone number, 13. When she heard it was me on the other end of the line, my mother sneered, "I thought you were dead. You still remember to call your mother." As my mother cursed at me, my father's voice also reached my ears. "Whose call is it?" my mother said impatiently. "Who else could it be? Isn't it that ungrateful wretch?" My father quickly snatched the phone away and scolded my mother. "What ungrateful wretch? That's our dear daughter." I smiled and continued to listen to their act. Sure enough, after my father grabbed the phone, he started criticizing my mother. "Esme, how have you been all these years? Don't mind your mother's harsh words. In fact, she's talked about you a lot these years. She's all bark and no bite. She's long regretted quarreling with you. Your father also regrets divorcing your mother. Otherwise, your younger brother wouldn't be disabled, and you wouldn't have cut off ties with the family. It's all my fault." At the end, my father even pretended to choke up. Since he started acting, of course I couldn't be left behind. After irritating my eyes with an onion and pinching my thigh, I choked up and said, "Actually, I regret it too, especially when I see other classmates spending holidays with their families while I'm all alone. Dad, please tell Mom I'm sorry. I know I was wrong." My father agreed and excitedly said to my mother, "Did you hear that? Our daughter is apologizing to you. Both children are equally dear. They both came from your womb. I think you two should make up today." Hearing this, my mother hesitated for a moment before agreeing to take the phone. I asked her to put it on speaker and then told them my plan. I told them that I was now self-employed and could earn a lot of money each month. The older I got, the more I understood their hardships, and the more I longed for a complete family. I also said I wanted to move back to my hometown because life there was more peaceful. After hearing this, my parents kept nodding in agreement, complaining to me about how expensive life in the city was, where even drinking water cost money, and how much better it was in the village. They also said that the house in the hometown had already been renovated and I could live there if I went back. Secretly delighted, I started painting a rosy picture for them. I told them I had saved some money and planned to use it for my younger brother's wedding. I also asked them to clean up the old house first. I would order a new set of furniture online, replace all the old things, and told them to return the rented house in the city and move back to the hometown first, then we could hold the wedding there. This way, it would not only be convenient to hold the wedding but also easier for matchmakers to introduce suitable partners. After all, it was harder to find city girls who knew each other well compared to those from the hometown. Finally, I also ordered a refrigerator, a TV, and other large furniture online. After doing all this, I showed them the order screenshots. I told them to leave for home immediately to clean up, and I would be back in a few days. Seeing my sincerity, my mother and the others agreed. 14. I don't know if it was because they were thinking about arranging a marriage for Dean soon, but my parents acted extremely quickly. Early the next morning, they sent me photos of themselves on a minibus heading back to the countryside. Grandma, Dad, Mom, and my younger brother were all in the photos. I replied, "Okay, you go home and get ready first. I have some work to deal with here. It will probably take a few days. I'll be back as soon as I'm done." My parents didn't suspect anything and even reported to me the progress of cleaning the house over the next 2 days. On the third day, my father remembered the furniture I bought and messaged me asking why it hadn't arrived yet. In fact, right after taking the order screenshots, I immediately requested a refund. The so-called furniture would never be delivered to the house, so I told him that since our home was in the countryside and the items were large, it was inconvenient for delivery. Besides, I checked and it would only arrive the next day. Although my father felt a bit reassured, he still wasn't completely at ease. Finally, he simply messaged, "We're making arrangements for your brother's marriage. The blind dates will start tomorrow. Why don't you transfer the betrothal gift money to your mother first? Then when your brother goes on the blind dates, we'll have more confidence. By the way, you know that these days, the betrothal gift money has gone up. We can't do it without $1 million or so. We can't let others look down on us." The message came in at 9 o'clock in the evening. I glanced at it but didn't reply. Instead, I continued working on the latest script I had taken on. In the middle of the night, my phone issued a piercing earthquake alarm. I woke up from my sleep and saw the aftershock alert. The high-rise building I lived in shook gently, but my social media feed was in an uproar. When I opened the web, news about the earthquake in my hometown was everywhere. Just like in my previous life, the earthquake wasn't very strong, centered around the entire village. Fortunately, except for our family, everyone else only suffered minor injuries. Only our newly renovated two-story house was in ruins again due to the earthquake. The next morning, someone from the village called my cell phone. The first thing they said when I answered was, "Is this Georgia and Barrett's daughter?" I replied yes, and then they told me that my father, mother, grandmother, and younger brother were all buried under the rubble. God knows, when I heard this news, I could barely contain myself and almost laughed out loud. Overwhelmed with joy, I had to hold the phone away from me and kept pinching my thigh hard to stop myself from laughing. After calming down, I pretended to choke up, asked about their situation, and said I would take a bus home immediately. 15. After a 4-hour drive, I finally returned to my hometown. The first thing I did was to confirm whether they were dead or not. Unfortunately, they were all still alive. The silver lining was that both my parents were paralyzed, and my younger brother, by an odd twist of fate, had his genitals crushed. Only my grandmother, who went out to use the toilet in the middle of the night, survived unharmed. Now, 3 people in the family were paralyzed. My grandmother cried and asked me, "Girl, what should we do now? There was already 1 disabled person in the family, and now there are 2 more. Why is God so unfair, picking on our family like this?" After saying that, she wiped away her tears and grabbed my hand. "Girl, from now on, your grandmother, your parents, we're all counting on you." I silently pulled my hand back, looking at the 3 people who had just come out of the emergency room and were still lying in bed. I said calmly, "Don't worry too much for now. Let's take it one step at a time. Grandma, I'm glad you're okay." My grandmother didn't understand the hidden meaning in my words and just nodded in agreement. "That's right. I'm already so old, if I had been hit, I might have ended up in a coffin." while my grandmother was out, I looked at my unconscious parents, lying neatly in their beds, and said calmly, "Dad, Mom, there was never any furniture. I just made up an excuse to get you home. Now that I see you lying here like this, I'm at peace." Then I told them everything that happened in my previous life. Finally, I couldn't help but sigh. It's a pity that from start to finish. You never knew I was looking forward to this day. As soon as I finished speaking, I saw tears streaming down my father's and mother's faces. Everything proved to me that I had been reborn. This was their perfect ending. In the evening, I made an excuse to go out and buy food, bought a ticket, and left for good. No matter what happened to them in the future, my grandmother would have a hard time. After all, she was old, and now she had to take care of 3 disabled people. Just thinking about it made me feel sorry for her. 16. I returned to the city where I used to live. Perhaps it was fate. Once, when I took Declan to the countryside for a walk, I saw the old Taoist priest who had helped me in my previous life. In my previous life, when I saw him at this time, he was only in his early 50s, but this time, he was already an old man with white hair, looking very wise and immortal. Tears welled up in my eyes immediately. I walked up to him and kowtowed 3 times and bowed 9 times. The Taoist priest looked at me, speechless for a long time. Finally, he said, "You look very familiar, young lady. Have we met somewhere before?" I didn't say much but begged him to take me as his disciple. The old Taoist priest said I shouldn't be bound and refused to accept me as a disciple, but since he had no wife, no children, he could take me as his daughter. I immediately knelt down and kowtowed, calling him Father. After that, I continued to live in the city and create. On weekends, I would take Declan to the Taoist temple on the mountain, where I would tell my adoptive father about what I had seen and heard and other interesting things. I knew that a kind person like my adoptive father would live a long, long life, and I, having embraced a bright future, would also accompany him with Declan for a long time. Story 2. After being attacked by zombies. I found myself transported back to 10 days before the outbreak of the zombie virus. To survive, I had to lay low and be cautious. I then stole my dad's secret stash of money and started stockpiling supplies. The scene was terrifyingly real. Chaotic streets, people screaming and scattering, countless zombies madly lunging at me. I was pinned to the ground, the blood-stained fangs growing closer to my face. Just before I lost consciousness, I could hear the sound of bones being crushed. I thought I was a goner, but then, a jarring ringtone from a cell phone suddenly woke me. Still enveloped by the terror of death, I quickly opened my eyes, jumped out of bed, grabbed a fruit knife from the nightstand, and cautiously surveyed my surroundings. Then, I was shocked. I found myself in a small, cozy 10-square-meter room. My desk was cluttered with homework I hadn't finished the night before, reminding me that I had returned to the world before the virus outbreak. How did I get back home? Ugh, my head hurts so much. Holding my throbbing forehead, I collapsed on the bed, recalling the events that led up to the zombie bite. My name is Lillian, a typical recent graduate who failed last year's college entrance exam and was sent to a cram school by my dad. But not long after I started the repeat year, the zombie virus broke out. Within 2 days, the city had completely fallen, and zombies were everywhere. I had been wandering outside for a year, and the apocalyptic crisis never seemed to improve. Eventually, unable to resist the longing for home, I risked crossing through zombie-infested territories and was subsequently overwhelmed by a horde of ferocious zombies. As these bloody memories flashed through my mind, I started to doubt if it was all a nightmare when I heard a familiar voice urging me from outside the door. "Lillian, why aren't you up yet? Breakfast is ready." It was my mom's voice. I was thrilled, pushed open the door, and saw my mom and sister busy preparing breakfast for the family around the stove. It was a warm and happy scene. My dad was lounging on the sofa reading the newspaper. Seeing me, he stood up and said, "Lillian, it's okay that you didn't pass the college entrance exam. The most important thing is not to give up hope. I've enrolled you in several more cram schools. Push a little harder and try again next year." Everything was just like in the dream. I remembered. After having this breakfast, I went to the cram school. In 10 days, the zombie virus would break out completely, and I would lose contact with my family, uncertain of their safety until the moment I was bitten and killed by zombies. It wasn't a dream. Shaking my head, I forced myself to calm down and said to my dad, the tuition for the cram school is too expensive. Let me study at home instead, don't worry about the tuition fees. Just like in my memory, my dad casually opened a drawer, handed me a bank card, and said, "Your job is to study hard and get into a good university next year. Don't let your mom and me down." Got it, Dad. Taking the tuition money, I nodded vigorously, my mind already made up. This time, I was determined to protect them. After hurriedly eating a few bites of the meal my mom made, I rushed downstairs. Reuniting with my family felt great, but I no longer had time to enjoy the warmth of home. With only 10 days left until the apocalypse, I had to use the survival skills I learned while on the run, helping my family through this crisis. Firstly, I need to choose a suitable location to build a safe house that can accommodate a family of 4. The apartment buildings in the neighborhood are too high and too crowded, housing thousands of people, each of whom could become an unpredictable factor. In the early stages of the zombie virus outbreak, there will likely be a mass infection among the people. It's uncertain whether the neighbors upstairs and downstairs will turn into biting monsters. Additionally, zombies have a keen sense of smell. The more densely populated the area, the more susceptible it is to attacks. Therefore, I set my sights on the suburbs, which are neither too remote nor too crowded, making it the ideal place for our family to hide. Half an hour later, I arrived near a factory just outside a suburban residential area. There used to be several medium-sized businesses here, but they have been completely abandoned due to economic transition. The rust-streaked gates of the abandoned factory were plastered with several rental ads offering cheap rates. Using the phone number on the ads, I contacted the landlord. When he heard that I wanted to rent the entire warehouse, he was surprised. "Ma'am, what do you need such a large warehouse for?" I pulled out the money I had just withdrawn from the bank. "I plan to open an online store, and I need your warehouse for stocking goods. This is the rent for the first quarter. Please count it." The basement storage had been abandoned for a long time and it was rare for someone to want to rent it. After taking the money, the landlord didn't ask any further questions about what I intended to do, and hurriedly left after dropping off the keys, as if afraid I might change my mind. However, I smiled satisfactorily. With just this small amount of rent, I secured such a large safe house. Although the lease was only for 3 months, I wasn't worried about the landlord coming after me for rent once it expired. After 3 months, zombies would be rampant in the city, and the landlord would definitely have other concerns than chasing me for the rent. After getting the keys, I chose a basement storage room, cleaned it up, and fortified it, with the tuition fees sponsored by my dad. I contacted a renovation company. The workers brought thick steel bars to weld all the air vents shut, ensuring normal air circulation while preventing zombies from crawling in, while replacing the windows with tempered glass. I also installed a periscope for observing the outside. 2 days later, the remodeling was almost complete. The workers, puzzled, asked, "Ma'am, you even installed a periscope. Are you planning to play real-life CS?" I casually replied, "The neighborhood security isn't great. I'm considering safety too." In addition to the periscope, I also bought a 60% new drone through a second-hand platform online. It wasn't cheap, and in just 2 days, the tuition fees from my dad were all spent. Fortunately, the safe house modifications were largely complete. The next thing to consider was quickly figuring out a way to raise money and stock up on enough supplies. At 8 in the evening, I dragged my tired feet home. Dinner had already ended, and while my mom reheated some dishes for me, she tenderly rubbed my head. "You finish classes at the tutoring center so late. Please don't overwork yourself." I hadn't heard my mom nag in a long time, and it warmed my heart. Holding back tears, I said, "Don't worry, Mom, the hard work now is for our family's future." My dad, who was wiping the table, paused for a moment and gave me a look of relief. "It seems our son has truly grown up," I thought, feeling a pang of emotion in my nose. In the past, I was so irresponsible, often skipping school to play online games, causing endless worry for my parents, but not anymore. One night, while my dad was in the shower, I secretly opened his wallet, certain that the bank pin was my mom's birthday. Over the years, he had managed to save quite a bit of money without my mom knowing. I had known about this for a long time. The next day, I woke up early, pretending to go back to my training class for a makeup session, but instead, I hid myself away. It wasn't until after 8 a.m., when both my parents had left for work, that I sneaked back to find the car keys. We owned a small pickup truck that my dad used for deliveries, usually parked in the garage and seldom used. I planned to borrow it to transport supplies. With the apocalypse looming, resources would become extremely scarce, and I had to stock up on all necessary provisions before its arrival. The first issue to address was food. Given the prolonged duration of the virus, I opted for foods suitable for long-term storage, such as military compressed biscuits and chocolate. These foods were calorie-dense and had the advantages of being compact, lightweight, and durable, making them easy to carry without spoiling easily. The downside was their monotony, which would make them hard to stomach over time. To diversify the flavors, I also bought plenty of biscuits and canned goods, including both fruit and beef varieties, which were also suitable for long storage and straightforward consumption without the need for heating. Besides these, fresh fruits and vegetables were essential. In the afternoon, I made a trip to a seed company to purchase seeds for various fruits and vegetables. Once back at the safe house, I began cultivating a vegetable garden. Next, I had to tackle the issue of drinking water. In the post-apocalyptic world, the accumulation of numerous corpses would severely contaminate the groundwater, making the price of a bottle of mineral water comparable to gold. I had seen a woman die a horrific death from consuming contaminated groundwater, her body severely decayed. To address the water supply, I constructed a simple filtration system in the safe house and dug a large reservoir to collect rainwater. I planted many shade-loving plants in the water reservoir to help purify it. Additionally, I bought several truckloads of bottled water, anticipating dry seasons when rain might not fall for extended periods. Having secured food and water, the next step was to gather medicines. The post-apocalyptic environment was harsh, filled not only with zombies that could bite but also various viruses and bacteria. Even a common cold or flu could threaten the safety of my family. Considering the strict government control over medications, I had no choice but to drive the old pickup around, scavenging for drugs. I bought dozens of boxes of cold medicine, including some for treating bruises and sprains, and prepared a full basket of these, along with bandages, various disinfectants, and antibiotics to last several years. This process was lengthy, and to avoid exposing the location of the safe house, I personally carried all supplies back. While stocking up, I systematically inspected the safe house to identify any shortcomings and made immediate repairs as needed. Although the underground storage room was structurally solid, it was not without its flaws. Without a sewage system, living there would inevitably generate various kinds of household waste. In a post-apocalyptic world, even taking out the trash is perilous, as you risk zombie attacks or threats from homeless wanderers. Therefore, after securing food, water, and medical supplies, I knew I needed to arm myself for personal protection. I opted for a firefighter's axe and a retractable baton, compact, lightweight, and reasonably powerful. Additionally, I gathered some everyday essentials, such as flashlights, toilet paper, and garbage bags. Most supplies were easy to come by and available at the local market. But purchasing feminine hygiene products alone was embarrassingly awkward. Can you picture a 19-year-old guy hustling alongside middle-aged women at a discount sale for sanitary pads? It was mortifying. When I went to check out with a cart full of goods, the cashier's odd stares made me wish I could dig a hole and hide. But for the sake of making life easier for my family, I'd endure being seen as a weirdo. During those days, I was constantly busy with preparations for the impending doom. It wasn't long before I faced a significant crisis. Somehow, my dad found out I had dipped into his emergency fund. When I got home one day, he was waiting at the door, confronting me about it. My dad believes in tough love, and had he discovered my secret use of the funds, I wouldn't have needed to wait for a zombie outbreak for him to finish me off. I couldn't admit to it, so to divert his attention, I exposed his secret stash of money instead. What, you dare keep secret cash? My mom, who was doing laundry, exploded with anger and dragged Dad by the ear into the bedroom, sparing me a beating. That night, I eavesdropped as my dad knelt on the washboard, trying to defend himself. I thought to myself, hang in there, Dad, Mom will forgive you once the apocalypse arrives. The emergency fund issue soon blew over, but my family's suspicion towards me only grew. I was too preoccupied to focus on my studies and was exhausted from all the early mornings and late nights. The next day, My sister Stella cornered me. What have you been up to lately? I saw you scrambling with those women for discounted sanitary pads at the supermarket. It was so embarrassed, and after much thought, I decided to tell her the truth. I had been inventing excuses for my parents' constant inquiries, and it was giving me a headache. I realized I couldn't keep my actions secret forever, so I confessed to her. Stella, only a year younger and about to enter her final year of high school, has always been lively and open to new ideas. Moved by my situation, she hugged my arm and chided, "Why didn't you tell Mom and Dad about this sooner?" I replied with a wry smile, "You know what our parents are like. They'd never believe this. Keep it a secret for now. I'll tell them when the time is right." Stella agreed and even offered her own savings to support my plans. With her help, we purchased more essentials and stocked up on Stella's favorite snacks like ham sausages, dried cheese, pine nuts, and sunflower seeds. Considering the unpredictable post-apocalypse climate, I prepared several sets of winter cotton clothes for everyone and amassed a plethora of summer attire, including anti-slip sneakers with steel studs, masks for viral protection, various bedding items, and disposable underwear and socks. We also packed several boxes of supplies. Stella, being meticulous, had taken the time to learn various vegetable gardening techniques online and spent considerable time selecting the seeds we needed to plant. She reminded me that the lighting conditions in the safe house were poor and not all fruits and vegetables could adapt to this environment. We should focus on cultivating vegetables like cabbage and potatoes. She also pointed out that subsisting on compressed biscuits and canned food would lead to nutritional deficiencies over time. It would be better to raise some poultry in the safe house for a regular supply of fresh protein to keep illnesses at bay. This posed a problem for me, as the safe house wasn't designed for keeping poultry, and raising animals would require a significant amount of feed. Moreover, without timely cleaning of animal waste, the place would soon become uninhabitable. However, Stella smiled and said, "I've already thought of a solution. Remember the water reservoir you built? We can utilize it to raise fish, which would also help purify the water." As for the feed, there was no need to worry. Fish feed was readily available and affordable in the market. As long as the filtration system in the fish pond was powerful enough, it wouldn't affect the use of water. I smacked my forehead and exclaimed, "You're brilliant, let's do it." With the money ready, everything moved quickly. Just one day before the virus outbreak, I had stockpiled enough supplies to last our family for 3 years and installed traps around the main entrance to fend off zombies. The years of exile had not been in vain. Relying on these survival skills, I had fortified the safe house securely. Despite this, Stella couldn't help but worry. "Sis, our supplies will only last for 3 years. What will we do after that?" I patted her little head and reassured her. Based on past experiences, the government would immediately invest in vaccine research and production after the outbreak. Given our country's capabilities, 3 years should be sufficient to develop an effective cure. If we could last these 3 years, I was confident that order would be restored to the human world. After moving everything, it was almost dark. Stella looked at her phone and said, "Let's go home, it's getting late, and Mom and Dad will be worried." I shook my head. "Let's not go back tonight. Let's get used to life here first. If anything is lacking, we can still make improvements early on." Stella hesitated. "Aren't you worried about Mom and Dad?" I grinned mischievously. "It's good if they worry, otherwise, how can I trick them into coming here?" Our parents were quite conservative and wouldn't accept such an absurd reality. If I told them the truth outright, they would not only disbelieve me but might also subject me to a merciless intervention, potentially leaving me crippled. The only solution was to make Stella and myself disappear. Once panicked, they would follow the clues I had left at home and find their way to the safe house. I ruefully told Stella, "Once Mom and Dad find us, I'll figure out a way to hold them here. You'll lock the main door from inside. Once the zombie virus breaks out outside." They were too preoccupied to beat me up, I thought. Events unfolded just as I had anticipated. On the day the virus broke out, the sky was exceptionally gloomy. Birds flew in flocks over the safe house, and even stray cats and dogs barked restlessly. I was crouched down, inspecting the filtration system in the safe house, when suddenly I heard the main door being kicked open. Turning around, I saw my parents, their faces livid with anger, storming in. I quickly signaled to Stella to close the back door while I hurriedly got up to meet them. before I could utter the explanation I had rehearsed. My dad roared, "You little rascal, rebelling, are you?" And kicked me. I stumbled, and with a mix of tears and laughter, tried to explain the situation to my dad, who was too enraged to listen and slapped me several times, leaving me dizzy. Seeing the situation turning bad, Stella quickly shut the door and then tried to stop my dad, saying, "Dad, my sister and I didn't mean to hide this from you. Listen, the zombie virus is about to break out. She did this to save our family." What? Both my parents froze, gripping Stella's hand. Demanding to know what was going on, I took the opportunity to get up, rubbing my swollen cheek, reflecting on how heavy the word, fatherly love, truly weighed. My dad, still skeptical, pulled Stella aside and hesitantly approached me. "Son, is all of this true?" Tired of explaining, I pulled out my phone and opened a live news broadcast. On the screen, the news anchor, reading from a cliched script, was emphasizing the supposed stability within the country compared to the chaos abroad. Suddenly, a staff member rushed into the studio, handing the anchor a note. The anchor's face changed immediately. "We interrupt this program with urgent news. A highly infectious virus has been reported in our city, with numerous citizens already infected. The government urges everyone to stay at home and avoid getting infected." As we were all intently watching the news, numerous cries of alarm could be heard outside the safe house. I quickly looked through the periscope and saw blood-covered individuals running from the suburban areas, followed by others with hunched postures. These were no longer people, despite wearing regular clothes. Their torsos were covered with grotesque wounds oozing dark fluid, and their skin displayed an unnatural bluish-black hue. The most terrifying aspect was their teeth, sharp like those of a shark, certainly not human. Their movements were twisted and eerie, yet their speed was alarming. Quickly catching up to their targets, soon, the person in front was tackled down, and the street echoed with his agonizing screams. I stepped aside to let my dad look through the periscope. There was no need for visuals. The terrifying screams from outside the vent were enough evidence. After a while, quiet returned outside. Both my parents, pale-faced, slumped on the sofa, murmuring, "It's true, such outrageous things really happened." I comforted my dad, "Don't worry. Trust that the country can handle these zombies. However, it might take a long time, probably at least 2 to 3 years. For now, our family of 4 must live inside this safe house." I remembered that right after the outbreak of the zombie virus, the government would immediately initiate emergency plans. Focused research and treatment of the virus were initiated, but the spread was alarmingly rapid. Within just a few days, it had swept across the entire country, resulting in massive casualties and significantly complicating relief efforts. By the time I was bitten, no effective cure had been developed. All we could do was wait. My mother was speechless for a long time until her emotions stabilized. Then she began to scold me, questioning why I hadn't informed them about the situation sooner. Rubbing my stinging cheek, I responded with a bitter smile, "If I had told you earlier, would I have been any better off? Didn't Dad just beat me up? It still hurts." My mother rolled her eyes at me. "Doesn't it hurt when your dad hits you? Look at you, you almost made your dad sprain his finger." Listening to the screams outside, my parents were extremely worried, but I remained calm. The zombies were indeed numerous, but the suburban population was not as dense as in the city center. With several urban-rural areas nearby, the zombies were attracted to the more populated regions and were less likely to target us. Our safe house was sturdily built, and it was unlikely that zombies could breach it. After several busy days, I was exhausted, instructed my dad to secure the front door, and went back to bed. When I woke up the next morning, my parents were still anxiously guarding the door, refusing to leave. Thankfully, my sister Stella had taken the initiative to prepare meals for us, understanding the stress our parents were under. Since the outbreak of the zombie virus was recent, the city's water and electricity were still functioning. Apart from being confined to our safe house, life for our family of 4 hadn't changed drastically. However, the previous day's events had caused my parents to lose their appetite. After barely managing a few sips of porridge, my dad began to pace anxiously, muttering about the chaos outside and worrying about his colleagues. All I could do was reassure him and suggest focusing on our future as a family. Although my actions might seem selfish in my father's eyes, I'm neither a saint nor do I have the capacity to save everyone. being able to build this safe house and take care of my family was already the limit of my abilities. Stella was very timid. She had spent the past few days near the periscope, crying at the dire situation outside and seeking comfort in the arms of my dad and me, trembling and questioning, what if those monsters break through? Is the door strong enough? What if the zombies get inside? I patted her forehead and reassured her, don't worry, Dad and I will definitely protect you and Mom. As the only two males in the family, it was our duty to take care of them. In my spare time, I began to work out and took out the prepared firefighting axe and telescopic baton. Placing them within easy reach, my dad had adapted to our new reality and began patrolling and checking the safe house's defenses, identifying areas for improvement. Working at a mechanical plant, he had strong practical skills and spent a few days fixing any oversights I had missed. My mom and Stella took on the responsibility of growing fruits and feeding fish, and they learned some basic nursing skills. In such a harsh survival environment, no one could guarantee they wouldn't get injured or fall ill. Having these nursing skills could better help us take care of our family. Fortunately, the city's infrastructure was still relatively good. Despite the virus outbreak lasting for 5 or 6 days, our safe house still had running water and electricity. The mobile signal was unaffected. Stella would occasionally check her phone and use chat apps to contact her classmates to discuss life after the apocalypse. Honestly, everyone was living miserably. The sudden catastrophe plunged the city into unprecedented chaos. All factories had shut down, and zombies could be seen everywhere on the streets, completely paralyzing traffic. Initially, some people placed their hopes on the government, but I knew the disaster was too widespread. Even national-level rescue efforts couldn't keep up with the pace at which the disaster was spreading. Outside, the transportation had completely collapsed, making it impossible for rescue supplies to reach those in need. Many people, while searching for supplies, were surrounded and attacked by zombies. Those who survived often fought each other over food. It was indescribably tragic. By comparison, our family was practically living in paradise, without any disruption to electricity or water. Mom even showcased her cooking skills by preparing a pot of braised fish, the aroma of which had both Dad and me drooling. However, after eating our fill, I reminded Mom not to use open flames for cooking anymore. Her cooking skills were indeed exceptional, but the smell of food could easily drift out through the vent and attract other survivors. In these apocalyptic times, the human heart is the most complex. Once our hiding place was exposed, our safe house would no longer be safe. Dad agreed and also cautioned Mom. Also, when you and Stella use your phones to find out about the outside world, make sure not to reveal any information about us. It's best to set your status to invisible to avoid attracting attention. In an environment where supplies were extremely scarce and zombies were everywhere, our family was dripping with riches, able to indulge in luxuries like braised fish, which made us a target of envy. I was most worried about Stella. Her lack of experience made her vulnerable to being tricked during online chats with classmates. So I urged Mom to keep a close eye on her and ensure that she didn't reveal anything she shouldn't. Our family was extremely cautious, watching as the world outside fell deeper into chaos, and all we could do was worry helplessly. In the 3rd week of the virus outbreak, the city lost power, all electrical devices stopped working, and we could no longer use our phones to learn about the outside situation. But I knew that the outside world was only getting more chaotic. The entire city was without electricity, and the survivors' days were only getting tougher, and this was just the beginning. 2 weeks after the power cut, the water supply also failed. If it had just been a power outage, people could have stayed indoors and endured it, but the lack of water meant that survivors living in high-rise buildings could no longer stay in their homes and had to risk moving to places closer to water sources. This massive migration brought disastrous consequences. The zombies, always ready for a feast, would not let them go easily. This hypothesis was soon confirmed. On the 25th day of the outbreak, dense screams suddenly came from a residential area in the suburbs. Although there had been screams outside during this period, such large-scale screaming was unheard of before. The continuous screams caught the attention of the entire family. Dad hurriedly looked through the periscope, only to recoil after one glance, his face pale as he said, "Outside. There are so many people, they are being attacked by zombies. There are bodies everywhere. It's terrible." I didn't say anything. because I had already anticipated this situation. Less than 2 kilometers from the safe house, there is a suburban area where at least 10,000 people reside. After experiencing water and power outages, these people are bound to flee their homes in search of food and water sources. Zombies. Following the scent of these people, launch attacks midway. The number of those who manage to find water and survive is extremely small. The situation is tragic. Through the periscope, I can see people being chased by zombies everywhere. Some are trapped in their cars with their families, while others are dragged to the side of the road and viciously bitten by zombies. I even saw a pregnant woman being devoured alive by zombies. Those who are attacked soon stagger to their feet, either numbly wandering in circles or lunging at the nearest person. The gory scene is chilling and evokes a sense of shared misery. With so many people moving together, it's inevitable that they will all be wiped out by zombies. If our family leaves the safe house, we're essentially walking into danger. Stella is already terrified, curling up in the corner. With every scream from outside, she shudders violently, holding my arm in despair. Sis, maybe we should try to save them. It's just too awful. Foolish girl, we need to take care of ourselves first. In this situation, we might not even be able to save ourselves. I replied, I'm not heartless. Hearing the screams of others inevitably pains my heart. However, I can't play the saint and put ourselves in danger for the sake of others. We've witnessed too much death recently, and it has numbed us. Every couple of days, people venture out in search of food and water, and their fates are usually grim, with fewer than 20% making it back alive. Of course, people won't just sit and wait for death. Many choose to flee with their families, but their fates are equally tragic. One day, while I was watering the potatoes, I suddenly heard my sister's cry of alarm and rushed to check on her. I saw a group of 7 people, both men and women, all young, wearing sunglasses and masks, wrapped up tightly, running towards the parking lot of the residential area. They cautiously avoided areas heavily infested with zombies. I'm familiar with such scenes. The residential area is too dangerous, and every day people try to drive out of the city, but I know that even if they manage to escape to another city, their fate will be the same. The surrounding cities have already fallen, and this action is hardly better than waiting to die at home. These people were somewhat clever. 4 of them went to open the car doors, while the other 3 kept watch. They even placed an alarm clock at a distance to try to distract the zombies with the noise. However, they underestimated the scale of the zombies. Soon after the alarm went off, hordes of zombies appeared. The 3 keeping watch were quickly surrounded. I heard the fierce sounds of struggle and the excited howls of the zombies. The people in the car panicked, quickly abandoning the vehicle and clumsily rushing into a building, with a large group of zombies following them. I couldn't see exactly what happened, but continuous screams soon began. The zombies broke into the building and began hunting down the escapees. Within minutes, a portly man screamed as he jumped out of the window to escape, but was quickly tackled and bitten by zombies outside, turning into a bloody mess. The scene was heart-wrenching. I averted my gaze and sighed to my dad. It looks like we're going to have a few more infected near the settlement. Life inside the safe house was oppressive. Not only did we have to guard against the threat of zombies, but we also had to endure the constant barrage of gruesome death scenes. Honestly, it was tough on the spirit. The only solace was the plants we had previously planted in the cultivation room, which had begun to take root and sprout. These tender plants seemed to represent the miracle of new life, bringing us a bit of comfort for the soul. At lunch, Mom made an extra dish to celebrate these sprouting lives. After eating, Dad and I went to the vegetable garden to carefully water them, but before we finished watering, I heard the roaring sound of car engines outside, followed by a broadcast. Citizens, we are rescue team members. The nation has not abandoned everyone. Please, upon hearing this broadcast, quickly bring food and water and gather at the square. We will lead everyone out of this city to a place free from the virus and zombies to start a new life. The broadcast repeated several times, mainly focusing on the outskirts where the city meets the countryside. Mom and Stella were thrilled, immediately dropping their watering tools. Great, the rescue team has finally come, we can be saved. As they started packing to leave, Dad and I exchanged glances and quickly stopped them. Don't go, it could be a trap. It had only been 2 months since the virus outbreak, and several nearby cities had already fallen. The whole country was shrouded in the shadow of the apocalypse. It was too soon for a rescue team to arrive. In my previous life, I had waited nearly half a year without seeing any large-scale rescue. Logic told me that this rescue team outside was a hoax. Mom, startled, questioned how it could be possible. If these people weren't from a rescue team, why would they broadcast to lure us out? Most likely to steal supplies, I guessed. I immediately grabbed the periscope, adjusted the angle, and looked in the direction of the broadcast. Sure enough, what arrived were not rescue vehicles but a hodgepodge of private cars. These people parked on the roadside and used the broadcast to lure unsuspecting survivors, demanding those with food and water leave their supplies behind. Those who came for help without anything were violently driven away. Some people who couldn't stand it and confronted these rescue teams were immediately beaten up. They were nothing but a gang of bandits. Thank goodness we didn't go out just now, or the consequences would have been unimaginable, I said. Mom also saw everything through the periscope, her face turning pale as she collapsed onto the couch. Stella cried helplessly, "These people are so cruel. How can they do this? Everyone is already living so miserably, and they even want to take away the little food we have left. It's utterly inhumane." I gave a wry smile. Perhaps this is human nature. The apocalypse truly tests humanity in such extreme conditions. The bloody reality gradually surfaces. Many refugees, under these circumstances, spontaneously band together, forming bands that roam around looting and killing. At night, when the zombies are most active, members of the gang find a place to hide and wait for dawn. During the day, when the sunlight is strongest and the zombies are least active, they sneak into residential areas to carry out their looting plans. Fortunately, not everyone is foolish, having witnessed the gang's actions. The surviving residents refuse to show themselves. The vehicles parked outside for a long time don't manage to gather much in the way of supplies. The gang leader then changes tactics, shockingly decides to go door to door, armed with weapons, forcing the vulnerable, like widows and orphans, to hand over their food. My father, enraged by what he sees, says, "Lillian, we can't just watch this happen. These people keep roaming around nearby, and they're a threat to us. It would be disastrous if they found this safe house." I hesitate and ask my father what he plans to do. He can't think of anything immediately. Frustrated, he keeps pinching his thigh. My mother quickly tries to calm him down, arguing that it's better to let it go since they outnumber us, look menacing, and are heavily armed. We simply can't provoke them. While my parents are caught up arguing, I, peering through the periscope, spot several zombies wandering aimlessly like headless flies. An idea suddenly strikes me. I approach my father and suggest that we could use the zombies to drive away these troublemakers. My father, puzzled, asks how I plan to do that. Looking at the fish swimming in the water tank, a bold plan forms in my mind. Zombies have an acute sense of smell and hearing, especially sensitive to anything with a fishy scent. The robbers don't dare to be too reckless. They cover themselves up tightly to prevent any scent from leaking and attracting a zombie assault. We could use scent to lure the zombies to them. Around 5 in the afternoon, when the sun is setting and the zombies begin to stir from cool places, my father and I decide to act. If the plan is executed correctly, it would be a one-way trip for the gang. We finally put to use an expensive drone we had bought earlier. After a simple dinner, I carefully release the drone through the ventilating window. My mother and Stella catch a large live carp, and my father is tasked with killing it, deliberately smearing the blood and guts all over the drone. He even hangs the smelliest parts of the guts on the drone using a rope. After checking everything one last time, I position myself under the periscope, observing the outside while controlling the drone, loaded with fresh fish guts, to hover over the street outside. The drone's remote control range is 3 kilometers, just enough to attract the zombies to their target. As expected, the mindless zombies quickly fall for it. The fish itself carries a natural fishy smell, and with the drone smeared in fish blood, it proves fatally enticing to the zombies. All the zombies gather around the drone, making excited, growling noises. However, as the drone flies high, the zombies can't reach it. Despite their jumping, they clumsily follow it, and soon reach near the square where the gang members are still scavenging for food. Caught off guard by the swift arrival of the zombies, the gang members realize too late what's happening. The drone hovers directly above them, the smell of blood emanating from it enough to drive the zombies into a frenzy, who rush to encircle the square. Initially, the zombies are only interested in my drone. But soon they find a more intriguing target. The gang members, like a group of sharks that smell blood, swiftly shift their focus and pounce on them. Several robbers armed with axes were quickly surrounded by zombies. The crowd panicked and began to scatter, but the number of zombies closing in was considerable. Soon, the last 3 people at the back were tackled to the ground. Those who were tackled began to scream for help, hoping their companions would rescue them. However, such mobs are typically disorganized and self-centered in critical moments, so no one was willing to help those tackled by the zombies. The robbers quickly dispersed. A few lucky ones managed to dive into an SUV, ramming through the zombies to escape, but many others didn't manage to start their cars in time and had to climb onto the roofs to temporarily evade the zombies. Unfortunately, the zombies didn't let them off easily. Soon, the area beneath the vehicles was swarming with zombies. Some people were grabbed by their legs and dragged under, while more zombies climbed up the doors. The horrifying screams soon filled the street. I crouched in the safe house, my face grim. Although the robbers were driven away, the number and hunting capability of the zombies sent chills down our spines. The number of zombies in the area was increasing, quickly turning it into a zombie land. My dad sighed repeatedly, patted my shoulder, and suggested I retrieve the drone first. I carefully controlled the drone back. After retrieving it, I made an unexpected discovery. Following behind my drone was another unfamiliar drone, with a blood-stained cloth hanging from its wing, scribbled with hasty handwriting. "You must be the survivors living under the storage room. I'm the owner of Unit 603 in Nanhua Community. Do you have any medical supplies? My wife has a fever. Please help us." Seeing the message on the cloth made me nervous since it exposed the location of our safe house, which could be highly disadvantageous for my family. My dad analyzed. "Nanhua Community is near the plaza, less than 2 kilometers from our safe house. Probably the owner of that apartment saw you operating the drone and hastily wrote this plea for help, sending it with our drone." My mom and Stella, kind-hearted as they are, urged me to help this family. I hesitated. But revealing wealth brings troubles. If we help the requester, how can we ensure they won't turn on us? My mom replied, "Don't think so poorly of everyone. That family wouldn't have written this plea if they weren't desperate." At my mom's insistence, I decided to act kindly. Our safe house had a good stock of medical supplies, including fever reducers and antibiotics. I tied these medicines to the undercarriage of the unfamiliar drone and monitored its flight direction through the periscope. Sure enough, in a residential building on the plaza, a window was quickly opened, and a man wearing glasses cautiously reached out to retrieve the medicines. Then, he attached a gift box under the drone and sent it back to us. When I opened the gift box, I found 2 pieces of smoked sausage inside. My mom clapped her hands excitedly. "I told you, good deeds bring good rewards, and finally, we can enjoy a change of taste." I felt grateful that the family knew how to reciprocate kindness. For the next while, I occasionally communicated with the family in Unit 603 via the drone. I learned that the glasses-wearing man was a high school teacher, living with his wife. Since the outbreak, they had been trapped at home. Fortunately, their apartment was on the top floor with a staircase leading directly to the rooftop, where the man had planted various vegetables and fruits, along with the stock of smoked sausages. They were managing to survive. Although his wife was not in good health, our house was always short on medicines. We began to share what we had. If the man next door lacked medicine, I would send some over using a drone. In return, he gave us some smoked bacon and even used his knowledge in physics to help me improve our water recycling filtration system. After spending over half a year in the safe house, our family of 4 had fully adapted to this lifestyle. The potatoes and eggplants we had planted were now yielding a bountiful harvest. Those days, my parents were overjoyed, busy harvesting the fresh vegetables to be dried and preserved by Stella. I finally tasted fresh melons and the long-missed aroma of vegetables exploded on my taste buds. It was incredibly delightful. One evening, my mother approached me and said, "The family at 603 is having a tough time. Why don't you use your drone to send them some fresh vegetables?" I agreed and piloted the drone to deliver freshly picked eggplants. It was a long while before the man at 603 opened his window, on which he had hung a note. The note bore unfortunate news. His wife had succumbed to her illness and passed away early yesterday morning. Instantly, the joy our family felt was overshadowed by this sad news. My father stared blankly at the vent window, cursing, "This damn virus. How long will it continue?" By the 7th month of the apocalypse, it began to snow outside. Our safe house lacked heating, and the rain and snow seeped in through the vent, chilling us to the bone. The damp and cold winter of the South felt penetratingly magical, bringing about a sense of despair. Despite my mother pulling out all our thick quilts, they were not enough to fend off the cold. Relying on our stockpiled supplies, we managed to scrape by, but the man at 603 was in a dire situation. During the second week of the blizzard, he sent a message asking for help, saying he had caught a severe cold and might not survive the winter. He wrote the note as a farewell and to thank our family for our long-term care. Upon receiving his note, my parents were visibly distressed. Although we had never met face-to-face, the exchange of messages over time had made us consider him a friend. My mother suggested, "Lillian, don't we still have plenty of antibiotics? Send some to Finley, owner of 603, and maybe catch a fish for him to make soup. It's so cold, and he's hungry and severely ill. How can he cope?" I knew my mother had a tendency to be overly compassionate, but I agreed nonetheless. I couldn't stop her kindness. However, her good intentions eventually led to a security risk for us. After sending the medicines and food to Finley, the drone malfunctioned on its way back, crashing into an electric line and falling. My father and I were frantic. The drone was our crucial means of understanding the outside world, and we couldn't afford to lose it. Eventually, my father and I decided to take the risk and leave the safe house to retrieve the damaged drone to see if it could be repaired. Despite the high risks involved, we had no other choice. The winter wind was harsh as if slapping us brutally, and the road was covered with a thick layer of ice. My father and I cracked the door open just enough to ensure there were no zombies nearby before cautiously stepping out. I instructed my father to keep watch close to the safe house while I went to look for the drone, but he was reluctant to let me go alone. Reluctantly, Dad insisted on coming with me. Fortunately, the drone hadn't fallen far, and I quickly found it buried in the snow. I picked it up in a hurry and was about to check what went wrong when Dad suddenly pushed me and shouted, "Lillian, run!" I turned back to see a horde of zombies emerging from the snow, rapidly heading towards us. The winter was cold, and our thick coats made it hard to move, but the zombies were unaffected, unable to run back to the main gate in time. The first zombie charged at us. I swung my baton forcefully, pushing back the zombies in front, while Dad came over to help. "You open the door, I'll hold them off," he said. "Got it," I replied, rushing to push the door open. But then I heard Dad scream. Turning around, I saw a zombie leap onto his back and bite down. Thankfully, the thick layers he'd wrapped himself in before leaving the house protected him. The bite only tore through the outer jacket without drawing blood. However, more zombies were closing in, about to surround us. "Dad," I yelled, about to rush to his aid when the door of the safe house swung open. Surprisingly, my usually timid mom charged out wielding a rolling pin, striking the zombie that had attacked Dad. "How dare you attack my husband? How dare you attack my son?" Her ferocity was like that of a bodyguard, quickly clearing the zombies around Dad. "Mom, why did you come out?" I was shocked by her bold actions. With the tide of undead not yet upon us, I quickly pulled them into the safe house. Stella, who had been hiding behind the door, promptly shut the iron door behind us. With a loud bang, the zombies were kept outside, through the iron door. I could even hear their nails scraping against the metal, sending chills down my spine. Mom, who had been so fierce just moments before, now knelt on the floor of the safe house, sobbing in terror. Dad and I rushed to comfort her, each of us hugging her tightly as she cried, "What would we do if something happened to you too?" Seeing Mom cry her heart out brought tears to my eyes. Perhaps this is what family is all about, once emotions stabilized. I insisted Dad take off his coat to check for any bite wounds. Fortunately, it was a close call with no injuries. His only wound was a scrape from a fall. Just to be safe, I gave him an antibiotic shot and urged him to rest and conserve energy in case he fell ill. After enduring that long winter, spring finally arrived, signaling a time of renewal. Thankfully, our family survived. With a year's experience in planting, my parents expanded their gardening efforts. Our safe house was now filled with greenery and various fruits and vegetables. The man from Unit 603 had also survived the winter and continued to exchange information with us via the drone. I kept using the drone to monitor the situation outside. A year had passed since the virus outbreak, and only a few households remained within several kilometers. Those who had survived this long had ample experience in survival. After discussing with my family, I decided to use the drone to establish contact with these few remaining households. Subsequently, we formed an alliance and even collaborated to set traps to eliminate the zombies that frequently roamed near our residential area. Zombies aren't bothered by the cold, but they dread the harsh sunlight, which accelerates the decay of their bodies and slows their movements considerably during the hottest days of summer. The households in our area would band together to scavenge for essential supplies. Although our family wasn't short on food, my father joined in these scavenging trips a few times to integrate with the larger community, taking advantage of the scorching summer days. We emptied several nearby supermarkets. That day, my father even brought home a bag of rice and several packets of hot pot base, which delighted Stella immensely. In the evening, our family sat joyfully around the stove, savoring a long-missed hot pot meal. However, the risk of cooking with an open flame was still too high. After witnessing a tragic event, my mother decided never to use an open flame again. That night, while I was maintaining the safety shelter's filtration system, I suddenly heard screaming outside. I quickly observed the situation through the periscope and saw a disheveled woman running frantically to the door of a survivor's house, pounding on it violently. Soon after, a large group of zombies followed and viciously attacked the building. Eventually, the disheveled woman and the family inside were all killed by the zombies. At first, I didn't understand what had happened until I spoke with a man from Unit 603, who explained the situation. The incident occurred while the family was eating hot pot. The smell of the hot oil drifted outside, attracting a refugee who was fleeing from place to place. It was this refugee who led the zombies to them. And in a moment of indulgence, the whole family perished. A truly regrettable outcome. After that day, my mother organized a family meeting. We collected all items that could start a fire and established a rule that we would only light a fire once a week, specifically for making fish soup on Sundays. We had no objections. What did a slight drop in living standards matter compared to our lives? Our family lived cautiously, albeit humbly, yet in peace, each day. Stella would make a mark on the wall with chalk, murmuring sadly to herself, "It's been so long, I wonder when it will be safe outside." At those moments, I would hug Stella's shoulders and cheer her up with a smile. "Don't worry, the country won't abandon us. As long as we stay united as a family and live a simple life together, we will eventually see better days." As the seasons changed and winter returned, more than 500 days had passed since the virus outbreak. Stella grew up, becoming very well behaved and knowledgeable. Not only did she take over all the household chores, but she also self-studied a great deal of medical knowledge, which eased our worries whenever someone had a minor ailment. My parents focused on cultivating the land beneath our safe house, planting lots of cabbages. When it was time to harvest the cabbages, my mother made an exception and used a bag of flour to prepare a simple meal of beef dumplings, despite lacking dipping sauces. We enjoyed the meal immensely, compared to the blood-covered, wandering infected zombies in the cold and snowy outdoors. Our home felt like heaven. Although the threat of zombies still lingered, the smiles began to reappear on everyone's faces as they watched over their family. After the arrival of spring, our family recently celebrated a great joyous event. While Mom was cooking for everyone, she suddenly started vomiting out of nowhere. Stella and I were terrified, thinking Mom had fallen ill, until Stella noticed Mom's slightly bulging belly and her expression turned peculiar. Dad chuckled and said, "Staying in the safe house all day gets boring. Since we're not doing much anyway, we thought we might as well have some fun and give you guys a little brother or sister." Stella and I were speechless. Well, I figured it out. The only real newcomer was the one in Mom's belly. I had to admire their nerve, considering the timing. Adding a new member to the family should have been a happy occasion, but it undoubtedly added to our burdens. Later, the man from apartment 603 learned about it and sent over 2 eggs as a celebratory gesture. We were all happy to receive the eggs, but amidst the joy, I felt particularly puzzled. I quickly sent a message via drone, asking him where he got the eggs from. It had been nearly 2 years since the apocalypse began. It was impossible for anyone to keep poultry And eggs weren't easy to preserve or have lasted from before the apocalypse. He told me that recently, several helicopters had appeared over the city, living high up. He was among the first to spot them and excitedly ran to the rooftop to call for help. The people in the helicopter then dropped some supplies, including the eggs. This news filled us with overwhelming joy. After waiting for 2 years, the National Rescue Team had finally arrived, indeed, 3 days after receiving the eggs. Many drones appeared in the sky above the city, randomly dropping supplies. I was at home picking tomatoes when I suddenly heard the sound of propellers and hurriedly used a periscope to look outside. The sight was incredibly thrilling. Besides the drones dropping supplies, I saw several military helicopters sweeping across the sky, and I could even hear them exchanging fire with zombies. Soon, a long mist broadcast echoed through the city skies. Dear citizens, please stay indoors and do not venture out. Our troops are currently eliminating the zombies, and it is very unsafe outside. Additionally, every day at 6 in the evening, we will concentrate on dropping supplies. After you hear the gunfire stop, please proceed immediately to the drop sites to collect supplies. Please do not rush and try to maintain order at the scene. The broadcast continued to circle over the city, followed by a stirring national anthem that was deafening and moved Stella and me to tears. Given past experiences, Mom was still cautious, holding Stella and me back, saying, "Don't go out yet, it might be those rogue groups causing trouble again." Dad also added, "Yes, we have enough supplies for now. Let's stay in the safe house for a while longer and see how things unfold outside." Both Mom and Dad are conservative by nature, which my sister and I understand. However, the gunfire and armed helicopters outside were real, indicating that our nation had not abandoned us. The rescue teams had crossed several cities to reach us. 2 days later, using the periscope again, I spotted some soldiers in camouflage. They conducted a large-scale clearing of zombies near residential areas and left behind some supplies and medicine, shouting through a megaphone, "Citizens, the zombies nearby have been cleared out, and it is now safe within a 2-kilometer radius. You can come out for some fresh air, but please don't wander off too far. There are still more zombies in the city center, and we will launch a full-scale attack on them tomorrow." After the soldiers left, Stella eagerly grabbed her mother's hand, exclaiming excitedly, "Mom, did you hear that? The zombies near our residence have been eliminated. We'll soon be able to leave the safe house, and the city will calm down before we know it." Her mother nodded, wiping away tears of joy. "Yes. The disaster is finally coming to an end. Soon, our family can live without fear." That evening, her father pulled out a pack of hot pot spices, and they lit a fire once more. The family gathered together, celebrating the joy of surviving the ordeal in lively spirits. The day after the soldiers departed, more intense gunfire could be heard from the city center. In the afternoon, a distinguished guest arrived at their home. It was the man from apartment 603. He brought with him a load of fresh groceries and rushed to the door of the safe house, knocking excitedly. "No need to hide anymore. It's safe now. I've brought you something to eat." Since the outbreak, our family of 4 hadn't ventured out much and was unfamiliar with the outside world. We opened the door to let him in and asked for details. The man from 603 had been outside and had gathered quite a bit of insider information, which he shared in great detail. The situation was as I had expected. The sudden disaster had spread globally in a very short time, affecting not only our city but other provinces at the same time. Initially, the country was in a reactive mode, able to conduct only small-scale rescues before gradually expanding the effort and reclaiming the overrun areas bit by bit. The hardships of the journey go without saying. This unprecedented disaster caused tremendous losses to the nation, and the population was greatly reduced. Since our city is quite remote, it took the military 2 years to gradually fight their way here. Although it was tough, they made it, and victory will eventually be ours. It won't be long before the city regains its vitality. More rescue teams will be stationed here soon to help us rebuild our homes. Also, the government has developed a vaccine specifically for the zombie virus. People outside are lining up to get vaccinated. You should find a time to register too. Pregnant women like your sister-in-law can even apply for home vaccination. After seeing off the guest from 603, our family hugged each other once more, crying tears of relief. It was over, everything was over. 2 days later, my father, sister, and I, supporting my pregnant mother, went to get vaccinated, life had returned to the streets, with military vehicles occasionally passing by, and the city's loudspeakers broadcasting messages of hope. Citizens, the darkness will pass, and we are on the brink of a new dawn. The city is safe, and we hope everyone will participate in the reconstruction efforts to rebuild our homes. Home, then, I was taken aback, but disaster, only when about to lose it, can one truly appreciate the beauty of home. All the hardships endured are worth it for this day. On July 19th, the last zombie in the city was completely eliminated. On September 3rd, the broadcast brought great news that all the peripheral cities in the south had been liberated. By November 6th, every survivor had been successfully vaccinated against the virus, and there was no longer any fear of infection. By that time, I had already donned the uniform of the rescue team, joining the efforts to rebuild after the disaster. The aftermath was a mess everywhere, but I firmly believe that as long as faith endures, humanity can find a new oasis.